Bella Hart never believed in werewolves, until one reckless night changed everything. After a heated encounter with a mysterious stranger during a storm festival, Bella walks away determined to forget him and focus on rebuilding her life. She's smart, stubborn, and refuses to depend on anyone, especially arrogant men with dangerous eyes. Then the nightmares begin. The fevers, the violent cravings, the strange pull toward the woods, and finally, the truth. She's pregnant with the child of Adrian Woods, the ruthless alpha feared by every pack in the region. But Bella quickly learns something far worse than carrying his heir. Human women aren't meant to survive alpha pregnancies. As her body begins changing in terrifying ways, Adrien becomes obsessively protective, refusing to let anyone near her while enemies circle in the shadows, desperate to steal the unborn child rumored to possess an ancient power. Bella refuses to become a helpless Luna hidden behind palace walls. If carrying the Alpha's child is a death sentence, she'll fight for her survival on her own terms, even if it means challenging Adrien himself. But the deeper their bond grows, the more dangerous the truth becomes, because Bella's pregnancy isn't just creating an heir, it's awakening something the werewolf world buried centuries ago.
Bella's point of view.
I didn't believe in omens. Omens didn't pay rent. They didn't negotiate contracts, fix broken pipes, or keep creditors from calling before breakfast. Omens were for people with enough money to romanticize disaster. I believed in signed paperwork. And that morning, my paperwork had finally come through. Hart and Com had won the restoration contract for the old Riverside market, a job every polished firm in the city had circled like vultures. Men with family money, women with rich husbands, people who smiled like they already owned the room before stepping into it. Then there was me. Bella Hart, tired as hell, stubborn as sin, and apparently just reckless enough to drag myself to the Storm Festival alone because I needed one night to celebrate not drowning. The festival sprawled across the fields beyond the city, right where the paved road gave up and the pine forest began. Lanterns swung from wooden poles. Music thumped from a stage near the beer tents. Vendors shouted over one another, selling roasted meat, fried dough, cheap jewelry, and bottles of honey wine with handwritten labels. Above it all, the sky rolled and snarled. People loved that part. The Storm Festival was built on bad weather. Every year, fools gathered beneath dark clouds and dared the heavens to break open. Supposedly, if rain fell before midnight, it meant fortune. If lightning struck the hills, it meant passion. If the wind changed direction, it meant the old spirits were listening. I thought it meant someone should have checked the weather report. Still, I bought myself a cup of spiced cider and let the heat sting my tongue. My braids were pinned up, though loose strands had already escaped around my face. I wore boots, jeans, and a black jacket I'd had for 6 years, because unlike half the women here, I had not come dressed to impress strangers. I had come to stand in a crowd, feel anonymous, and breathe for 5 damn minutes. My phone buzzed in my pocket. Maya, still alive? Me. Unfortunately. Maya, proud of you, boss lady. Don't go home early. I glanced at the sky as thunder rolled low over the trees. Me. I make no promises. Maya, drink something. Dance with someone hot. Stop acting 70. I snorted and locked my phone. The wind shifted then. Not gradually, not gently. 1 second, the air smelled of smoke, sugar, wet grass. The next, it turned sharp and cold enough to raise bumps along my arms. Lantern flames bent sideways. Somewhere near the stage, a microphone screamed with feedback. People cheered. Idiots. The first drop of rain hit my cheek hard as a warning. Then the whole sky split open. Rain crashed down so fast the field turned to mud beneath our feet. Vendors yanked tarps over their stalls. Someone screamed with laughter. Someone else cursed loud enough to compete with the thunder. The band kept playing for about 10 heroic seconds before lightning cracked over the ridge and killed the power. The crowd surged toward shelter. I got shoved sideways, caught myself on a wooden post, and nearly lost my cider to a man wearing antlers. "Watch it!" I snapped. He didn't hear me, or didn't care. I pulled my jacket tighter and pushed through the chaos toward the nearest building. An old tavern hunched at the edge of the festival grounds, like it had been there longer than the road, longer than the city, maybe longer than common sense. The sign above the door swung violently in the wind. The Black Stag. Subtle. I slipped inside with half the festival. Heat slammed into me first, then noise. Wet bodies packed the room shoulder to shoulder, dripping on scuffed wooden floors. The place smelled like beer, smoke, old wood, and rain-soaked wool. A fire burned in a wide stone hearth at the far end, throwing gold light over the crowd. I took one step forward. My boot slid. A hand caught my wrist before I hit the floor. Not grabbed, caught. Firm. Fast. Certain. I looked down at long fingers wrapped around me, then up, and forgot for one stupid second how to breathe. He was tall enough to make the room feel smaller, broad shoulders, dark hair damp from the rain. A black shirt clung to him like the storm had tried and failed to peel it off. His face was all hard lines and controlled danger, the kind of face that belonged on wanted posters or expensive whiskey ads. But it was his eyes that stopped me. Cold, bright, focused. Not blue exactly. Not gray either. Something sharper. Careful, he said. His voice was low, rough at the edges, and calm in a way that irritated me immediately. I tugged my wrist back. I had it handled. His gaze dropped to the puddle beneath my boots, then returned to my face. Clearly. I narrowed my eyes. Do you make a habit of catching women who don't ask for help? Only when they're about to break their necks. I wasn't. No? No. The corner of his mouth moved. Not a smile. Something more dangerous because it looked like he didn't do it often. Then I apologize. He released me. I should have walked away. That would have been smart, mature, very on brand for a woman who had promised herself years ago that pretty men with trouble in their eyes were a luxury she could not afford. Instead, I stayed exactly where I was, rain dripping from my jacket onto the floor, staring at him like I had lost my mind in public. He stared back. The tavern roared around us, but the space between us went strangely quiet. Then someone bumped into me from behind, and reality returned with an elbow to the spine. I moved toward the bar, or tried to. The crowd had swallowed every inch of open space. People were laughing, arguing, shaking water from their hair. The bartender looked like he regretted every decision that had led him to this night. I squeezed between two men and lifted my hand. "Whiskey," I called. The bartender pointed at the row of waiting customers. "So does everyone else. Then make mine first and call it charity." That earned me a laugh from the woman beside me. A shadow fell over my shoulder. I didn't have to turn to know it was him. Some people entered a space. This man claimed it by breathing. "You drink whiskey?" he asked. I looked at him. "You ask obvious questions?" "Only when I'm curious." "Curiosity gets people slapped." "That sounds like experience talking." "It is." This time he did smile. God help me, it was worse than the almost smile. The bartender finally shoved a glass toward me. Before I could pay, the stranger laid money on the bar. I stared at the coins, then at him. "No." His brow lifted. "No. I can buy my own drink." "I didn't say you couldn't." "Then don't act like I need saving twice in 5 minutes." Something changed in his face. Not offense, not amusement, interest, real interest. He slid the money back toward himself and gave the bartender a look that made the poor man suddenly discover efficiency. I paid for my own whiskey, took the glass, and swallowed half before the burn could scare me. The stranger watched like he was memorizing me. I hated that I liked it. "What are you celebrating?" he asked. "Who said I'm celebrating? You walked in like someone who won something." I leaned back against the bar. Maybe I did. And maybe I don't tell strange men my business. Smart. Don't sound so surprised. I'm not. thunder shook the windows hard enough to rattle the bottles behind the bar. A few people cheered again, but the sound was thinner this time. The storm wasn't charming anymore. It was angry. The stranger glanced toward the windows. For the first time, I noticed the way his posture changed. Not fear. Never that. He went still, head slightly angled, as if listening to something beneath the thunder. A shiver worked its way up my back. "What?" I asked. His eyes returned to me. "Nothing." "Liar." That almost smile came back. "You say that like you know me. I know men." "No," he said softly. "You know boys who were loud enough to convince you they were men." My fingers tightened around my glass. That should have pissed me off. It did piss me off. But it also landed somewhere too close to old bruises I didn't let anyone touch. I stepped nearer, chin raised. "Careful." His gaze dropped to my mouth. "I'm trying." The words slid between us, low and heated. My pulse kicked once. Hard. This was ridiculous. I was not some festival girl drunk on thunder and whiskey, ready to make bad decisions with a stranger because his voice sounded like gravel and sin. I had bills, plans, a business that needed me sharp in the morning. I had survived too much to be stupid over a man. Especially one who looked like he knew exactly how to ruin a woman and sleep fine afterward. So I finished my whiskey and set the glass down. "I'm leaving." He looked toward the door, where rain hammered the windows in silver sheets. "In that?" "I didn't ask for permission." "No," he said. "You didn't." I pushed away from the bar. The tavern door flew open before I reached it, letting in a blast of wet wind, and 3 soaked men who shouted that the road had flooded near the lower bridge. Someone else said branches were down. The bartender cursed and announced nobody was leaving until the worst passed, unless they had a death wish. Perfect. I turned back. The stranger was still watching me. Not smug. Worse. Patient. "Don't," I warned. "I didn't say anything." "You were about to." "I was." "What?" "That you can hate being trapped without pretending you aren't." For some reason, that made my throat tighten. I looked away first. The tavern felt too hot, too loud, too full of people breathing air I suddenly needed. I moved toward a side hallway near the stairs, where the crowd thinned and old framed photographs lined the wall. My boots creaked on the floorboards. Behind me, the noise dulled. I made it halfway down the hall before his voice followed. "Do you want me to leave you alone?" I stopped. He stood at the mouth of the hallway, not close enough to corner me. Not touching, not blocking the way. That mattered. More than I wanted it to. I should have said yes. Instead, I said, "I don't know what I want." His gaze held mine. "That's honest." "I didn't say it to impress you. You don't strike me as someone who does much to impress anyone." "Good." The storm groaned against the tavern walls. Rain ran down the small window beside us, blurring the festival lights outside until they looked like drowning stars. He came closer, slow enough that I could stop him. I didn't. My body had gone quiet in that dangerous way before a fight or a fall. Every sense narrowed to him. The clean bite of rain on his skin, the warmth rolling off him, the rough sound of his breathing when he finally stood close enough that I had to tilt my head back. "What's your name?" I asked. The question slipped out before I could stop it. Something guarded passed over his face. "Does it matter tonight?" It should have. God, it should have. But the storm was beating at the roof. My blood was hot from whiskey and victory and loneliness I refused to name. Tomorrow I would go back to being practical. Tomorrow I would be Bella Hart, business owner, survivor, woman with no room for mistakes. Tonight I was tired of being untouchable. "No," I said. "I guess it doesn't." His hand lifted, stopping just short of my face. Still asking. Still waiting. That patience was the thing that broke me. I closed the distance myself. The kiss was not sweet. It was a collision. His mouth took mine like he had been holding back from the second he caught my wrist. and I kissed him back just as hard, because I refused to be the only one losing control. My hands fisted in his shirt. His hand slid to my waist, pulling me closer, and the sound he made against my mouth went straight through me. Raw, hungry, almost inhuman. A door opened somewhere upstairs. Laughter spilled into the hall. I broke the kiss, breathing hard. His forehead rested against mine for 1 second. "Tell me to stop," he said. I looked at his mouth. Then his eyes. "No." His jaw tightened. "That isn't what I said. I know what you said." I dragged in a breath, and I said no. The storm cracked open above us. After that, everything became heat and thunder. He got a room upstairs from the owner with one quiet word and a look that ended whatever argument might have followed. I did not ask how. I did not care. The room was small, all slanted ceiling and old wood, with a narrow bed and rain lashing the window hard enough to make the glass tremble. For a moment, we stood there facing each other. Two strangers. No promises. No names. Just the storm and the reckless thing we had chosen. He touched me like I was on fire, and he didn't mind burning. I touched him like I had something to prove. Maybe I did. Maybe I needed to prove I could want something without being owned by it. Maybe I needed to prove my body still belonged to me after years of turning survival into a religion. There was nothing gentle about the night. But there was care in the way he listened, in the way he paused when my breath changed, in the way he watched my face like every answer he needed was written there. That made it worse. If he had been selfish, I could have hated him. Instead, he made me feel seen, and I hated that more. The storm raged until the tavern below went quiet, until the music died, until the world shrank to rain, skin, tangled sheets, and the steady thunder of his heart beneath my ear. I should have left before dawn. That had always been the rule with mistakes. Leave first, feel nothing. Give regret no furniture to sit on. But sometime in the dark, with his arm heavy around my waist, and the storm muttering beyond the window, I let myself close my eyes. Just for a minute. Just long enough to forget that consequences existed. Just long enough for the night to sink its teeth into me. 3 weeks after the storm festival, I smelled coffee burning from 2 floors below my apartment. Not regular burnt coffee. I smelled the scorched bitterness clinging to the bottom of the pot, the cheap vanilla creamer someone had poured into it, the cinnamon bagel going stale beside it. Under that, lemon cleaner, wet dog, laundry detergent, old cigarettes, and the sharp metallic stink of a leaky pipe behind my kitchen wall. I stood barefoot in the middle of my apartment at 6 in the morning, one hand pressed to my stomach, and whispered, "What the hell?" The answer came 10 seconds later. I barely made it to the sink before I vomited. Hard, violently. The kind of vomiting that ripped through my body like punishment. My knees hit the cabinet, my throat burned, my eyes watered. When it finally stopped, I stayed there gripping the counter, breathing through my mouth, because every smell in the building seemed determined to crawl inside me. It was the 3rd morning in a row. At first I blamed festival food, then stress, then the fact that I'd been surviving on coffee, contracts, and stubbornness since winning the Riverside Market job. By day 4, I blamed him. Which was stupid, because a man could not ruin your body from memory alone, even if his mouth still haunted mine at inconvenient times. Even if I sometimes woke in the dark with the ghost of his hand on my waist, my sheets twisted around my legs, my body hot and aching like the storm had never ended. I didn't know his name. That was the part that made me angriest. I had let a stranger fuck sense clean out of me during a thunderstorm, then slipped out before dawn like I was too grown to deal with consequences. He had been asleep when I left, one arm thrown across the bed, dark hair messy against the pillow, the hard line of his body half covered by the sheet. I hadn't looked back. Not once. Fine, once. At the door. But that didn't count. Now my body was staging a rebellion, and I had concrete dust to inspect by 8. I rinsed my mouth, tied my braids back, and told my reflection, "You are not dying. You are dramatic." My reflection looked unconvinced. By noon, I was standing inside the gutted Riverside Market, with a clipboard in one hand and a bottle of water in the other, pretending I couldn't hear a rat scratching inside the eastern wall. No one else heard it. That was problem number 2. Problem number 3 was the fever. It came without warning. One minute I was arguing with a supplier about warped beams. The next, heat rolled through me so fast I staggered. Sweat gathered at the back of my neck. My shirt stuck to my spine. "Bella?" Marcus, my site foreman, frowned from across the room. "You good?" "I'm fine." "You don't look fine." I said I'm fine. He lifted both hands. "All right, don't bite me." The word bite hit my ears wrong. My stomach clenched. I turned away, swallowed hard, and stared at the exposed brick until the room stopped tilting. That night, the nightmare started. I was running through trees. Not on 2 legs. The ground rushed beneath me. Wet soil, pine needles, rotting leaves. My breath tore out in harsh bursts. But it wasn't fear pushing me forward. It was hunger, need, something ancient and furious moving under my skin. Then came the moon. Red, huge, watching. I woke up gasping, drenched in sweat, my nails dug so deep into the mattress that one had snapped. My bedroom window was open. I never slept with the window open. For a long moment I sat frozen in bed, listening. The city breathed outside like it always did. Traffic, a siren somewhere far away, someone laughing too loudly on the sidewalk below. And beneath all of it, from the thin strip of woods beyond the old railway line, came a sound that slid straight into my bones. A howl, low, distant, real. My hand went to my stomach. Something inside me warmed. "No," I said aloud. Like my body cared what I said. By the end of the week, I couldn't stand coffee. I wanted ice by the cupful. Then rare steak, which was disgusting because I had never liked my food bleeding. I cried in the produce aisle because the smell of oranges made me furious. Not sad, furious. Like citrus had personally betrayed me. Maya found me in my office Friday evening, sitting on the floor behind my desk, with a fan pointed at my face and a bag of crushed ice between my knees. She stared down at me. "You look like death with lip gloss." "Thank you." "Are you sick?" "No." "Pregnant?" I laughed. Too quickly. Maya stopped smiling. My stomach dropped. "No," I said. She lifted a brow. "I can't be. That is a famous last word behavior. I mean medically, Maya." Her expression softened. I hated that too. Most people didn't know. I didn't hand out my history like business cards. But Maya had been with me during the worst of it 2 years ago, when pain had folded me in half behind a client meeting, and I ended up in the emergency room. Severe endometriosis, scar tissue, one ovary damaged enough for a doctor with kind eyes and terrible bedside timing to tell me natural pregnancy would be very unlikely. Very unlikely had become impossible in my head. Impossible was easier to live with. Maya crouched in front of me. "Bella, don't. I'm not saying anything. You are saying it with your face." "My face is concerned because you're eating ice like a raccoon in a heat wave." I closed my eyes. The math crawled into my skull whether I wanted it or not. The storm festival, the tavern, the room upstairs. His hands. The fact that my period was late, which I had ignored because my cycle had never respected calendars anyway. "Shit," I whispered. Maya stood. "I'm buying tests. I can buy my own damn tests." "Great, then buy 5. I bought 3. I told myself I was being responsible, not panicking. Responsible women pissed on sticks in gas station bathrooms after work because they wanted information. Responsible women did not shake so badly, they dropped the first test into the sink. The first one turned positive before the timer finished. So did the second. By the third, I was sitting on the closed toilet seat, staring at the little lines like they had opened a trapdoor beneath my life. Pregnant. I was pregnant. The word didn't feel real. It felt too clean for what was happening inside me. I pressed both hands against my stomach, low and careful. There was nothing to feel yet. No proof beneath my palms, no swell, no movement. But there was heat, a steady, strange warmth that pulsed once, like recognition. My throat tightened. Oh, you have got to be kidding me. The clinic fit me in the next morning after I used my professional voice and lied about severe cramping. I didn't feel guilty. Women got ignored unless they exaggerated. That was practically healthcare policy. Dr. Reynolds had been my doctor for years. She was calm, sharp, and didn't treat me like I was made of glass. That morning, though, she looked at my blood work twice. Then a third time. I sat on the exam table in a paper gown, gripping the edge with both hands. Say something. She looked up. You're pregnant. I gathered that from the $3 plastic profits. Her mouth twitched, but her eyes stayed serious. Your hormone levels are higher than I expected based on the date you gave me. What does that mean? It could mean your dates are off? They're not. Then we monitor closely. She folded her hands over the chart. Given your history, this is high risk. My laugh came out dry. You told me this was almost impossible. I told you it would be difficult. You said natural conception was close to a miracle. Yes, she said gently, and sometimes bodies surprise us. No, surprise was finding cash in an old coat pocket. This was my entire life getting knocked sideways by a man whose name I didn't know. Dr. Reynolds asked about the father. I stared at the floor. He isn't involved. Does he know? No. Can you contact him? The memory of storm-gray eyes flashed through my mind. The weight of his body over mine. The way he had stopped every time my breath caught wrong. Like control mattered even when desire was tearing through both of us. My stomach warmed again. I clenched my jaw. No, I said. And I'm not going to. Dr. Reynolds studied me for a moment, then nodded. All right. Then we talk about your options, your risks, and what support you have. Support. That word always sounded softer than it was. Support had strings. Favors had invoices. Help was usually a leash dressed up as kindness. I had learned that young, watching my mother smile through exhaustion while relatives promised assistance and collected pieces of her pride in return. I learned it again when my father left after the bills got ugly. I learned it every time a man offered to fix something for me and expected gratitude to come with my knees bent. No, whatever this was, it was mine first. Mine to choose. Mine to survive. Dr. Reynolds talked for 20 minutes. Vitamins, blood pressure, warning signs, specialist referrals. No alcohol. Less stress, which almost made me laugh in her face. When she handed me the ultrasound referral, her fingers brushed mine. Bella, she said, softer now. You don't have to decide everything today. I looked down at the paper, then at my stomach. The fear was there, huge and ugly. But under it was something else, something fierce enough to bare its teeth. I already did. That night, I threw out the half-empty bottle of whiskey in my kitchen cabinet. Then I stood there for a long time, grieving it like an old friend. After that, I put the prenatal vitamins on the counter beside my keys. My phone sat nearby. Maya had texted 6 times. Unknown numbers had called twice about work. No message from him, of course. How could there be? I didn't know his name. He didn't know mine. That should have made everything easier. Instead, when the wind shifted outside and brought the scent of rain through the cracked window, my whole body went still. The woods beyond the railway were black against the night. Something in me leaned toward them. I pressed a hand to my stomach and forced myself to step back. No one owns us, I whispered. Another howl rose in the distance. This time it sounded closer.
Adrian's point of view.
I had never liked cities. Too much concrete, too much iron, too many humans packed together, sweating fear and lies into the same stale air while pretending civilization was anything more than a thin coat of paint over hunger. The wolf in me hated it most. He preferred pine, wet earth, blood under the moon. He preferred borders that meant something. Territory marked by claw, bone, and oath. Not traffic lights, not glass towers, not alleyways that smelled of piss, engine oil, and old grief. Still, rogues had crossed into my region, and that made the city my problem. Everything in the north became my problem eventually. 3 sightings in 4 nights, Victor said beside me, his boots crushing broken glass as we walked through the service lane behind a row of abandoned shops. 2 near the railway, 1 by the slaughterhouse district. I said nothing. Victor knew better than to fill silence unless he had something worth hearing. Behind us, 2 of my enforcers moved like shadows. Tomas and Lev. Both armed. Both loyal. Both smart enough to keep their eyes down whenever my temper shifted. The alley was narrow, slick from earlier rain. Steam curled from a vent near the wall, carrying rot and old meat. Somewhere above us, a woman laughed from an apartment window, the sound bright and careless. Humans were always careless around monsters. Mostly because they had convinced themselves monsters were only stories. I crouched near a rusted dumpster and touched 2 fingers to a smear on the brick. Blood. Not much. Not fresh enough to matter. I brought it to my nose. Rogue. The stink of it crawled down my throat. Wild musk, infection, panic, and something wrong beneath it. Something chemical. Silver residue, maybe, or wolfsbane cut with city poison. My jaw tightened. "These aren't starving strays," I said. Victor's expression hardened. "You think someone is driving them in?" "I think someone wants me looking at the city." "Distraction?" "Maybe." The words scraped out of me. For 3 weeks, everything had felt like a distraction. Council meetings, border reports, pact disputes, tribute negotiations with the eastern clans. All of it noise laid over the same thing burning under my skin. The woman from the storm. No name, no pack. No scent trail after dawn except rain, whiskey, and sex tangled in ruined sheets. She had vanished before sunrise, like she had been made of the storm itself, leaving nothing behind but the memory of her mouth and the kind of defiance that sank teeth into a man's pride and stayed there. I had woken reaching for her. That alone had nearly sent me through the wall. Alphas did not reach. We took, ruled, endured. We did not lie in rented tavern beds, searching cold sheets for women who'd been smart enough to leave before we could become a mistake with a name. My wolf had been unbearable since. Restless. Furious. Snapping at anyone who came too close. Every night he pushed against my skin, dragging my attention toward the southern road, toward the city, toward any trace of rain in the wind. Mine, he had growled. I had ignored him. Mostly. A storm night encounter was not a claiming. Not unless vows were spoken, blood was exchanged, or the bond took root. I had told myself that until the lie felt almost solid. Then the wind shifted. I stopped walking. Victor stopped too, instantly. The men behind us froze. "Alpha?" I lifted one hand. Silence dropped. The city moved around us. Cars hissing over wet streets, distant horns, pipes knocking in the walls. I ignored all of it, because beneath the filth, beneath rogue blood and rust and human exhaustion, there was a scent I knew better than my own name. Rain-warmed skin, cedar smoke from the black stag's hearth, a trace of vanilla, steel, fury, her. My lungs locked. The wolf slammed forward so hard my vision sharpened at the edges. There. Not old. Not memory. Fresh. Alive. Close. I turned slowly toward the mouth of the alley. Victor's nostrils flared. His eyes changed first. A flash of amber before he mastered himself. Is that? Do not say a word. He shut his mouth. Good. Because I had caught something else beneath her scent. Something impossible. Something that hit me harder than any blade ever had. My blood. Not on her. In her. Deep. Hidden. Growing. A pulse, too small for human ears. Too faint for anyone but an alpha to recognize. But I heard it. Felt it. A spark, answering the old power in me like a flint catching fire. For one breath, the whole city disappeared. There was only that tiny sound. That tiny claim. My child. The wolf went mad. Mine. Ours. Protect. Kill. My claws punched through the tips of my fingers before I forced them back. Pain flared, clean and useful. I held onto it. Victor stared at me carefully. Adrien. He almost never used my name outside closed doors. That told me enough about my face. Find the rogues, I said. Alpha. That was an order. His throat worked. And you? I looked toward the street, where her scent dragged through the air like a hook under my ribs. I'm finding what belongs to me. The moment the words left my mouth, something in me recoiled. Not because they were untrue, because they were too true, and human women did not survive being treated like territory, especially not that one. I followed her scent through 3 blocks of city filth, past a line of food trucks, across a road where taxis leaned on their horns as if noise could save them from death. The closer I got, the more the child's presence grew. Not visible, not rational, but my blood knew. Every alpha line had old instincts, older than written law, older than council rule. The body of an alpha recognized its heir the way storms recognized mountains. There was no confusion, no doubt. She was carrying my child, and she was human. That thought settled behind my ribs like a hook. Human bodies were fragile around alpha seed. Too fragile. The old records were full of blood-soaked warnings, and dead women buried beneath polite language. Complications, rejection, maternal collapse. The baby fed on power. A wolf mother could withstand that. A human, I moved faster. By the time I reached the Riverside Market, my control was down to a thread. The building was old brick and exposed beams, half gutted for restoration. Men in hard hats moved through the open front. A saw screamed somewhere inside. Dust floated in the air, golden in the afternoon light. And there she was, standing beneath a cracked archway with a clipboard in one hand, arguing with a man twice her size, like she had personally invented stubbornness and was defending the patent. Her braids were tied back. Her boots were dusty. Her jacket was open over a dark shirt, and she looked tired in a way that made my wolf snarl. Not weak. Never that. But strained. Heated. Like her body was fighting a war no one else could see. You ordered untreated lumber for a moisture-exposed interior, she snapped at the man in front of her. Either replace it by Friday, or explain to the city why your supplier got dropped from a public project for incompetence. The man flushed. Ms. Hart, that's not... Try me. Hart. Bella Hart. I finally had her name. It moved through me with the same force as a vow. Bella. She turned before I spoke. Her body knew before her mind did. I saw it in the sudden stillness, the sharp inhale, the way her hand drifted toward her stomach before she caught herself and dropped it. Then her eyes found mine. For half a second, the storm was there again. The tavern hallway. Her mouth under mine, her nails in my back, the way she had looked at me like she wanted to tear me open, just to see if I bled arrogance. Then recognition hardened into anger. Of course it did. You, she said. The men around around her went quiet. I crossed the unfinished floor toward her. Every step made the child's pulse louder. My men followed at a distance, but not far enough. I could feel their shock, their curiosity, their fear. Good. They should fear what was happening. Bella's chin lifted as I approached. If this is some weird rich man stalking thing, I'm going to disappoint you fast. My mouth almost twitched. Almost. You left. Her brows rose. That's what people do after one-night stands. Victor made a sound behind me that might have been a cough if he had possessed a death wish. I ignored him. You should have told me. Told you what? My social security number? My breakfast order? We didn't exactly exchange resumes. You know what? Something flickered in her eyes. There it was. Fear, quick and buried deep. She knew. Not everything, but enough. I lowered my voice. How far along? Her face changed completely. Closed, locked, armored. None of your business. The wolf lunged. I stepped closer before I could stop myself. It is very much my business. Every worker nearby pretended not to listen, while listening with their whole bodies. Bella noticed too. Her eyes narrowed. Dangerous woman. She leaned in just enough for her words to cut. You don't get business rights because you fucked me during a thunderstorm. Silence slammed over the room. One of her workers dropped a wrench. Behind me, Tomas went rigid. Lev looked like he wanted the floor to swallow him. Victor wisely stared at a wall. My blood heated. No one spoke to me like that. No one. Kings had lowered their eyes. Alphas twice my age had bent the knee rather than test my patience. Men had pissed themselves when I said their names too softly. And this human woman stood in front of my guards, her crew, half the city permit office, and reduced me to a reckless mistake with working parts. My wolf did not know whether to bare teeth or purr. Bella, I said. Her eyes flashed. Don't say my name like you own it. The child's pulse fluttered between us. Too fast, too warm. My anger cooled into something worse. Concern. You're feverish. I'm annoyed. You're sweating. It's a construction site. You've been sick. That landed. Her mouth tightened. How the hell would you know that? Because I could smell it on her. Heat. Strain. The metallic edge of nausea. The faint wrongness of a human body trying to adapt to alpha blood and failing by inches. Because the child inside her was already feeding from a source she did not have. Because if I did not get her to my healer soon, she could die before she understood what she carried. I could not say any of that here, not with humans watching, not with my men listening, not with rogues in the city and enemy eyes possibly closer than I knew, so I did what instinct demanded. I gave an order. You're coming with me. The temperature in the room seemed to drop. Bella blinked once, slowly. Oh, she said. You're one of those. I should have stopped. I should have remembered she was not pack, not wolf, not raised under laws where an alpha's command meant protection before pride. But the old power was riding me hard, and the tiny pulse beneath her heart kept hammering one command through my skull. Protect. You are in danger, I said. You will leave with me now. Her smile was not kind. It was beautiful, though, sharp enough to cut a throat. Listen carefully, mystery man. She stepped closer, voice carrying just enough for everyone to hear. I don't know what kind of cult leader bullshit you're used to, and I don't care how many funeral-suited bodyguards you drag around to make your dick feel important. You do not walk onto my job site, bark orders at me, and expect me to follow because your jawline had one good night. Someone choked. Victor turned his head away. The humiliation hit like heat under my skin. Not because she had insulted me, because some part of me liked her more for it. That was inconvenient, dangerous, unacceptable. I leaned down until only she could hear me. You have no idea what you're carrying. Her nostrils flared. And you have no idea who you're threatening. I know exactly who I'm threatening. No, I said softly. You don't. For the first time, I let a fraction of the alphas through. Not enough to break her. Never that. Just enough for the air to thicken. For every wolf in the room to lower his gaze. For the humans nearby to feel their survival instincts wake up and whisper that something ancient had entered the building, wearing a man's skin. Bella felt it. I watched it move through her. Her breath caught. Her pupils widened. One hand curled over the edge of her clipboard. Then she stepped into that pressure instead of away from it. My heart gave one hard, unwilling beat. "Are you trying to scare me?" she asked. No. Good. Because I've been scared before. You're going to have to do better than standing close and growling. Victor whispered something in Russian behind me. Probably a prayer. I straightened slowly. Every instinct I had screamed to lift her over my shoulder, carry her out, and kill anyone who objected. I could do it. No human here could stop me. No wolf here would dare. But I saw the way she held herself, like a woman who had spent her life fighting hands that called themselves help. If I took her now, I would become another cage. And Bella Hart would break herself bloody trying to get out. So I forced my hands to stay at my sides. "My name is Adrian Volkov," I said. Recognition moved through one of the older workers near the beams. He took a step back. "Smart man." Bella only shrugged. "Congratulations. You will need that name soon." "I need a lot of things. Arrogant men are not on the list." "Your pride could get you killed." Her expression turned colder. "My pride has kept me alive." The words went in deep. I had no answer that would not make this worse. She pointed toward the open entrance. "Now get off my sight before I call security." "You don't have security." "I have Marcus." The large foreman she'd been arguing with earlier looked startled to be volunteered for death, but stepped forward anyway. Loyal, terrified, admirable. I looked at him once. He stopped. Bella snapped her fingers in front of my face. "Don't glare at my employees. Glare at me. I'm the one telling you to leave." I stared at her. At the woman carrying my heir. At the human whose body was already burning from the inside. At the only person in living memory who had dismissed an alpha command in front of my men and survived the next breath. Then I did the one thing no one expected. I stepped back. Victor's head turned sharply. Bella's eyes narrowed with suspicion. "This is not finished," I told her. "No," she said. "This was finished before you walked in." The lie sat between us, obvious and useless. She turned away first, but it was not surrender. It was a dismissal. A dismissal of me, in public, by a pregnant human woman who did not yet understand that half the monsters in the region would tear through bone to get what grew inside her. I walked out before my control cracked. Outside, the city air struck my face, sour and wet. My men followed in silence. No one spoke until we reached the black SUV parked at the curb. Then Victor said carefully, "Alpha." I looked back at the market. Through the open front, I could see her moving again, giving orders like her hands had not trembled for 1 second when I said danger. "Put watchers on her," I said. "How close?" "Close enough to die before anything touches her." Victor nodded. And if she spots them? My mouth curved without humor. She will. Because of course she would. Bella Hart missed very little, except perhaps the one truth that mattered most. The rogues had come into the city for a reason. Her scent was no longer only mine to follow. I could still feel the tiny pulse of my child, like a second heartbeat under my ribs as I opened the SUV door. For now, I would let her have her victory. For now, I would let her think she had sent me away. But the hunt had already begun, and whether Bella wanted my protection or not, every wolf in my territory was about to learn one command. If she bled, they died.
Adrian Woods was not subtle. The next morning there was a black SUV parked across from the Riverside Market with tinted windows and no license plate on the front. By lunch, a man in a dark coat had bought one coffee from the cafe opposite my site and spent 3 hours pretending to drink it. By 3, another one was leaning against a lamppost, reading the same newspaper upside down. I stood inside the market with my arms crossed, watching him through the open front entrance. Marcus came up beside me. Friend of yours? No. Enemy? Probably. He followed my gaze and frowned. Want me to say something? I almost laughed. Marcus was loyal, 6'4", and built like an industrial refrigerator. But something told me Adrian Volkov's men ate men like him for breakfast and didn't bother chewing. No, I said. Ignore them. You sure? Very. Marcus hesitated. Boss, yesterday was weird. That's one word for it. That guy, he's important? I looked back at the dark SUV. Adrien had stood in my job site like he owned the brick, the dust, the air, and every breath in my lungs. He had spoken to me like the world was already arranged around his decisions. And the worst part? For 1 second, some ancient, stupid part of me had wanted to lean toward him. Not because I was weak, because my body had recognized something before my brain could drag it into court and cross-examine it. I hated that. He thinks he is, I said. Marcus grunted. Those are the dangerous ones. Yeah, I murmured. I noticed. By evening, the fever was back. It crept up my spine while I signed delivery receipts and argued with the city inspector over load-bearing beams. My shirt clung to me beneath my jacket. Every smell in the building sharpened until I could tell which worker had eaten onions for lunch and which pipe under the floor had stagnant water sitting in it. The baby. God, I still wasn't used to that word. Felt like a coal banked low in my belly. Warm. Present. Impossible to ignore. I pressed my palm there when no one was looking. You and me, I whispered. We're fine. The warmth pulsed once. I yanked my hand away like the baby had answered. By the time I locked up, the streetlights were buzzing on and a thin rain had started falling. Not a storm. Just the kind of miserable drizzle that made the city smell like wet pavement, trash, and exhaust. The black SUV was still there. I rolled my eyes so hard it almost hurt. My apartment was only 15 minutes away, 10 if I cut through Bricker's alley behind the old bakery. Usually I avoided that shortcut at night. Not because I was scared, but because being sensible kept women alive. Tonight, though, I was tired of being watched. I turned down the alley. The moment I stepped between the brick buildings, I knew I'd made a mistake. The air changed. The city noise dulled behind me, muffled by the narrow walls. Water dripped from a rusted fire escape overhead. A dumpster sat halfway down the alley, lid crooked, flies rising in a black cloud from something rotten inside. But under the garbage smell was something worse. Wet dog, spoiled meat, blood left too long in heat. I stopped. My fingers slid toward the utility knife clipped inside my jacket. A man stepped out from behind the dumpster. He was lean, dirty, and smiling too wide. Another appeared near the far end of the alley, blocking the exit. A third moved behind me. Bella Hart, the first one said. My stomach went cold. I kept my face bored. If this is about a contractor invoice, email me like a normal asshole. The one behind me laughed. It didn't sound right. Too low. too hungry. The first man sniffed the air. Actually sniffed. His eyes flashed yellow. My grip tightened around the knife. "Well, damn," he murmured. "Alpha fucked a human and made something sweet." My heart kicked hard enough to hurt. Every ridiculous thing my mind had refused to believe lined up in front of me with teeth. Adrian's impossible presence, the way men feared him without knowing why, the fever, the dreams, the howls. No, absolutely fucking not. I drew the knife and flicked it open. The man's smile widened. "You going to cut us, pretty thing?" "If you get close enough." His gaze dropped to my stomach. "We don't need all of you." The world narrowed. Not to fear, to rage. He lunged. I moved before thinking. That was the only reason he didn't get his hand around my throat. I sidestepped and drove the knife into his thigh as hard as I could. Hot blood spilled over my hand. He screamed and the sound cracked into something animal. I yanked the blade free and slammed my elbow into his jaw. The second one came from the side. I threw my keys at his face. He flinched. It bought me half a second, enough to duck under his arm and shove him shoulder first into the brick wall. Pain ripped through my side as the third grabbed my jacket from behind and yanked me backward. My back hit his chest. His breath stank against my ear. "Careful," he growled. "Don't damage the pup." I snapped my head back into his nose. Bone crunched. He cursed and loosened his grip. I twisted, slashing blindly. The knife caught flesh. He stumbled away, blood pouring between his fingers. My breath came fast. Too fast. The fever surged hotter, and beneath it something else woke up. My hearing sharpened until I could hear their hearts. 3 ugly drums. Fast. Excited. Hungry. The first man rose from the ground. His fingers stretched, not metaphorically, stretched. Knuckles cracking, nails thickening into claws. My brain tried to reject what my eyes were seeing. It failed. "Oh, hell no," I whispered. He came at me again. I kicked the dumpster lid up with my boot. It smashed into his knees. He crashed forward, and I stabbed down into his shoulder, using both hands, putting every ounce of terror and fury behind it. He howled. A real howl. The sound tore through the alley and shook something deep inside my chest. The baby's warmth flared. For one wild second, I wanted to bite. Not run, not scream. Bite. That scared me more than the monsters. The second man slammed into me. We hit the ground hard. The knife skittered from my hand. Pain burst through my hip, my shoulder, my ribs. I twisted to keep my stomach from taking the impact, rolling onto my side as claws raked the pavement inches from my face. He grabbed my wrist. His teeth lengthened. "Alpha's not here," he snarled. "No one's coming." I spat in his face. His expression twisted. Then the alley exploded. Something hit him so hard he flew off me and smashed into the opposite wall, with enough force to crack brick. I scrambled backwards, sucking air into my lungs. Adrien stood between me and the rogues. At least I thought it was Adrien. His face was still his, but sharper somehow, every line carved with violence. His eyes burned silver blue in the alley gloom. Claws curved from his hands. Blood already streaked his knuckles, though I hadn't seen him strike twice. The air bent around him. The rogues froze. For the first time, they looked afraid. Adrian's voice was quiet. That made it worse. "You touched her." The first rogue tried to run. Victor came out of the shadows and caught him by the throat. The third shifted halfway into something nightmare made, all teeth and muscle and wrong angles. Adrien moved faster than my eyes could track. 1 second the thing was lunging. The next, Adrien had it by the skull and drove it into the pavement. The crack echoed down the alley. My stomach rolled. I forced myself up anyway, one hand braced against the wall. The second rogue, the one who'd been on top of me, was still alive. He dragged himself backward, leaving a red smear on the wet ground. Adrien turned his head. The rogue stopped moving. Who sent you? Adrien asked. The rogue smiled through broken teeth. Old blood wakes. Your heir belongs to more than you. Adrian's hand closed around his throat. Who? The rogue only laughed. Then Victor stepped closer, and the laughter died. I didn't watch what happened next. Not because I was delicate. Because if I looked too long, I knew I would remember every detail forever. My knees shook. I hated them for it. Adrien was in front of me before I heard him move. His claws were gone. His eyes still weren't human. Are you hurt? I'm fine. You're bleeding. So are they. Bella. My name in his mouth was not a request this time. It was a command wrapped in panic that pissed me off enough to keep me upright. I said I'm fine. His gaze moved over me, fast and brutal. My scraped cheek, my torn sleeve, the cut along my forearm, the way I held my side. You fought them. No, Adrien, I invited them to a book club. His jaw flexed. You should have screamed. I was busy not dying. You should have run. They blocked both exits. You engaged 3 rogues while pregnant. They engaged me first. For a second, he just stared at me. Not angry. Not exactly. Something like shock moved through his face, followed by something heavier. Respect. It landed between us, uncomfortable and real. You could have been killed, he said. So could my baby if I waited around to be rescued. His eyes dropped to my stomach. My baby. Not his, not ours. Mine. I saw him hear the distinction. I also saw him decide not to fight me on it yet. Smart man. A low groan came from near the dumpster. One of Adrian's men lay there, dark coat soaked with blood, throat torn open. The newspaper man from earlier. My breath caught. He was watching me, I said. Yes. He died? Yes. Something twisted in my chest. I hadn't asked for guards. I hadn't wanted them. But he had been there because of me. Because of what was inside me. Adrian's voice lowered. They found your scent. Others will come. Rain ticked softly against the alley. My hand settled over my stomach. For the first time, denial felt smaller than the danger standing in front of me. I looked up at Adrien. You said I don't know what I'm carrying. You don't. Then start talking. Not here. Of course not. His mouth tightened. Come with me. I laughed once, bitter and breathless. There it is. I'm not asking because I enjoy being disobeyed. Could have fooled me. I'm asking because if you go home tonight, you may not survive until morning. The alley went quiet except for rain and distant traffic. I wanted to call him arrogant, controlling, insane. He was all of those things. He was also right. I could still feel the rogue's hand around my wrist, hear his voice. We don't need all of you. I swallowed. Temporary, I said. Adrien went very still. And I have rules. His eyes stayed locked on mine. Name them. No cages. No servants hovering over me. No decisions about my body without me in the room. Maya knows where I am, and you don't touch me unless I say so. Something unreadable passed over his face. Then he nodded once. Agreed. If you lie, I leave. If I lie, he said quietly, you'll have more than enough reason to cut me too. I looked down at my bloody knife lying near the wall. Then I picked it up and wiped it on the dead rogue's shirt with a shaking hand. Adrien watched me. This time, he didn't tell me to stop. I stepped over the blood on the pavement and walked toward the mouth of the alley, refusing to let him see how badly my legs trembled. Behind me, Adrien followed. Not ahead, not dragging me, following. For now, that was the only reason I kept walking. The SUV smelled like leather, rain, and blood. Most of the blood was not mine, which should have been comforting. It wasn't. I sat in the back seat with my knife folded in my fist, my torn sleeve stuck to my arm, and Adrian Woods beside me, looking like a man carved out of restraint. Victor drove. Another black SUV followed behind us, headlights cutting through the wet streets. No one spoke for the first 5 minutes. Fine by me. I was too busy trying not to shake. My body had waited until we left the alley to remember it was human. My knees ached. My ribs throbbed. My wrist hurt where the rogue had grabbed me. Every time I blinked, I saw yellow eyes and teeth coming too close to my face. Then I'd look at Adrien, and remember he had teeth too. "You need a healer," he said. "I need my phone." His jaw tightened. "Bella." "You agreed Maya would know where I am." Victor's eyes flicked to the rearview mirror. Adrien reached into his coat and handed me my phone. He didn't argue, which made me suspicious. I called Maya before he could change his mind. She answered on the second ring. "If you are calling to tell me you finally ate something besides ice, I'm proud of you." "Maya, listen carefully." Silence. Then, "What happened?" "I'm okay." That is never the opening line of someone who's okay. "I got attacked." "What?" I looked at Adrien. He watched me with those cold, impossible eyes. "Dogs with personal problems." Maya went dead silent. "I'm going somewhere safe for the night," I continued. "His name is Adrian Woods. I'm sending you my location. If I don't text you by 9 tomorrow morning, call Dr. Reynolds, then Marcus, then every law enforcement agency you can harass." Adrien said, "Police won't help." I covered the phone. "Was I talking to you?" Maya sucked in a breath. "Is he there?" "Yes." "Is he the Storm Festival guy?" Unfortunately, my silence had always been too honest. "Oh my God," she whispered. "Bella." "I know." "No, I don't think you do." "Join the club." Adrian's gaze dropped to the hand I had pressed against my stomach. I moved it away out of spite. Maya lowered her voice. "Do you want me to come get you?" I did. For 1 weak second, I wanted my friend, my apartment, my cheap sheets, and a world where monsters stayed in horror movies where they belonged. Then the rogue's voice came back. "We don't need all of you." "No," I said. "Not yet. Just know where I am. Text me every few hours." "I will." "And Bella?" "Yeah." "If he hurts you, I don't care how hot or homicidal he is, I will set his life on fire." I looked directly at Adrien. "She says hi." His mouth almost moved. Not a smile, something more dangerous. The city fell away after that. Buildings have thinned. Streetlights disappeared. The road curved north into trees so dense they swallowed the sky. Rain ticked softly against the windows. My senses kept stretching farther than I wanted them to. Wet bark, moss, animal musk, steel, gun oil from the men in the SUV behind us. And under it all, Adrien. Cedar, smoke, storm air. I hated that my body found it comforting. After nearly an hour, we reached a stone wall higher than my apartment building. Iron gates stood open beneath 2 watchtowers. Men waited there dressed in dark clothes, weapons visible, eyes catching the headlights with a shine that was not human. My fingers tightened around the knife. Adrien noticed. "No one will touch you." "You keep saying things like that as if I'm supposed to relax." "You're in my territory now." That sentence did not help. The guards lowered their heads when the SUV passed. Not a bow exactly. More like instinct had grabbed the backs of their necks and pushed. The driveway opened into a compound. Not a house. A compound. Several long buildings formed a wide courtyard around an old stone manor with black-framed windows and ivy climbing one side. Beyond it, cabins dotted the tree line. Smoke rose from chimneys. Wolves, actual wolves, moved between shadows, too large and too intelligent to be anything normal. People emerged as we pulled in. Dozens of them. Some wore coats. Some stood barefoot in the rain like the weather was beneath them. Every face turned toward me, toward my stomach. My skin prickled. "Do they always stare like this?" I asked. "No. Lucky me." Victor parked near the manor steps. Adrien got out first and came around to my side. He opened the door and held out a hand. I looked at it, then stepped out on my own. A murmur rolled through the courtyard. Adrian's hand dropped. His expression didn't change, but the air did. It tightened. The pack felt it too. One by one, eyes lowered. All except one woman near the steps. She was tall, athletic, with cropped dark hair and a scar along her jaw. Her gaze moved over me once and landed on my belly with open disbelief. "A human?" she said. The courtyard went still. Adrian's voice was quiet. "Careful, Sloane." Sloane didn't look away from me. "Does the pack get an explanation, Alpha?" I stepped forward before Adrien could answer. "The human has a name." Her eyes snapped to mine. "Bella Hart," I said. "Temporary guest, unwilling spectacle. Very tired." Someone snorted before choking it down. Sloane's mouth tightened. "You don't know our ways." "No," I said, "but I know rude when I hear it." That got another murmur, sharper this time. Adrien moved beside me. "Bella is under my protection. Any insult to her is an insult to me." There it was again. Protection like a royal decree. I turned my head. "Useful, but next time try introducing me before threatening everybody." Victor looked at the ground like he was praying for patience. Adrien stared at me for a long second. Then, to my surprise, he said, "Noted." The pack heard it. They did not like it. Good. A woman in a gray dress hurried down the steps with two younger women behind her. "Alpha, we prepared the East Suite. A bath is drawn, food is waiting. I'll have the attendants." "No attendants," I said. The woman blinked. I softened my voice by half an inch. "Thank you, but no one bathes me, dresses me, feeds me, or hovers outside the bathroom door waiting for me to faint dramatically." Her eyes widened with offense. "It is custom for the mother of an alpha heir to be tended." "It's a custom for me to wash my own body." Adrien made a low sound in his throat. I pointed at him. "Don't start." I said nothing. "You thought loudly." Victor coughed. The woman's face pinched. "The pack will expect certain courtesies." "The pack can expect whatever helps them sleep. I agreed to temporary protection, not a personality transplant." I felt the dislike then. Not imagined. Real. It moved through the crowd like a cold draft. Their alpha had brought home a pregnant human who refused their traditions at the front door. To them, I was an intrusion, a weakness, maybe even a threat. I lifted my chin anyway. I had survived worse than being unwanted. Inside, the manor smelled of old wood, stone, herbs, and too many wolves. My room, suite apparently, was bigger than my entire apartment. A fireplace burned along one wall. A massive bed sat beneath dark beams. Someone had laid out folded clothes, slippers, towels, and a silver tray stacked with sliced meat so rare my stomach reacted with humiliating interest. I hated that too. The gray-dressed woman stood by the door. "I'm Anya. If you need anything. I need crackers, ginger tea, and a lock that works from the inside." Her brows shot up. Adrien answered before she could. "Give her the key." Anya looked like he had ordered her to hand over a family heirloom. "Alpha, the key." She left stiffly. When the door closed, I rounded on him. "Your people do not like me." "No. At least you're honest." "They're afraid." "Of me? Of what you mean?" I looked toward the window. Outside, figures still lingered in the courtyard despite the rain, watching, waiting. "And what do I mean?" Adrian's silence stretched too long. Before I could press him, another knock came. An older woman entered carrying a leather medical bag. Her gray hair was braided down her back, and her eyes were sharp enough to cut thread. "I am Mara," she said. "Pack healer." "Do you ask before touching patients?" Her gaze flicked to Adrien, then back to me. "Not usually." "Start." For the first time since I arrived, someone in this place smiled like they meant it. "Fair enough," Mara said. Adrien stayed planted near the fireplace. I looked at him. Out. His eyes narrowed. My body, I said. My appointment. Mara's smile deepened. Adrien did not enjoy any part of this. Still, after one long silent battle with himself, he walked to the door. I'll be outside. I assumed you'd be within brooding distance. The door shut behind him. Mara set her bag down. You're going to cause trouble. I was attacked by werewolves, kidnapped adjacent by an alpha, and judged by a courtyard full of supernatural strangers. Trouble had a head start. She studied me carefully. And still you make jokes. If I stop, I might scream. That honesty cost me more than I liked. Mara's expression shifted. Not pity, assessment. Then we begin with your injuries, she said. And after that, we discuss what your body is trying to survive. A chill moved through me that had nothing to do with the rain. Outside the closed door, someone whispered, "She won't last." Another voice answered, "Humans never do." Mara heard it. So did I. My hand settled over my stomach before I could stop it. The warmth beneath my palm pulsed once, fierce and steady, as if something inside me had heard the challenge and bared its teeth. I looked at the door. "Yeah," I said softly. "We'll see about that."
By the second morning, Bella Hart had offended half my household and unsettled the other half. She refused attendance. She refused the breakfast Anya prepared because, according to Bella, meat that still has opinions was not happening before noon. She refused to let anyone call her the vessel, which was wise, because I would have removed the tongue of the first wolf foolish enough to repeat it within my hearing. She also refused to stay in her suite. That was the problem. "She's where?" I asked. Sloane stood inside my study, boots muddy, arms folded over her chest. She looked less amused than she had any right to be. The West training yard. Victor, standing near the map table, "Heir," went very still. I looked up from the border reports. "Doing what?" Sloane's mouth twitched. "Training." The pen cracked between my fingers. Ink spilled over my hand. For one breath. The room was silent, except for the fire shifting in the hearth. Bella had been attacked less than 36 hours ago. Her wrist was bruised. Her side was tender. Mara had treated a cut along her forearm and warned me privately that Bella's temperature was higher than it should have been. And now she was in my training yard. With wolves, my wolf rose instantly, all teeth and fury. I stood. Sloane stepped out of my way before she could pretend she didn't know better. Victor followed me into the hall. "Alpha, not now. She won't appreciate you dragging her back." "I'm not concerned with her appreciation." "That," he said carefully, "may be part of the problem." I stopped walking. Victor lowered his gaze, but not quickly enough to hide the truth in his expression. I trusted very few men. Unfortunately, I trusted him most when he annoyed me. "She is injured," I said. "She is also terrified." My jaw tightened. Victor continued, reckless because loyalty had made him brave. "A woman like that does not sit still with fear. She turns it into a weapon." I resumed walking. "I know what fear becomes." "Yes," Victor said behind me. "That is why I'm mentioning it." The west yard sat beyond the main courtyard, fenced in ironwood and old stone. Generations of my pack had bled into that dirt. Children learned footwork there before they learned politics. Warriors earned scars there. Weakness was corrected there. Bella Hart stood in the center of it, wearing borrowed training pants, one of my plain black shirts tied at her waist, and an expression that suggested she was ready to sue the entire species. Her braids were pulled back. A wooden practice blade rested in her right hand. Sloane's warriors circled her. Female wolves, fast ones, disciplined ones. They knew better than to touch her without permission. At least they did if they wished to keep their hands. "Again," Sloane called. A young wolf named Elise stepped forward with a padded strike. Bella moved, not with supernatural speed, not with trained elegance, with instinct. She slipped left, ducked under the strike, and drove her elbow toward Elise's ribs, stopping short before contact. Then she stepped behind the woman and pressed the wooden blade against the back of Elise's knee. Dirty. Efficient. Better than I expected. A murmur passed through the watching wolves. Bella heard it. Of course she did. Her senses were sharpening faster than I liked. She looked toward the fence and found me. Instead of flinching, she smiled. It was not a kind smile. "Morning, sunshine." Several wolves froze, like she had just spat in a temple. I walked through the open gate. "Training is over." "No, I think we just started." "You are injured." "I'm standing." "You are pregnant." "I noticed." "You were nearly taken by rogues." "That's why I'm here." Her answer cut through the yard. The watching wolves shifted, some with irritation, some with reluctant interest. Bella lifted the practice blade. "If monsters are going to keep coming for me, I'm not sitting in a tower waiting to become somebody's tragic lesson." "You think a wooden blade will save you?" "No, I think learning how not to freeze might." "You didn't freeze in the alley." Her eyes sharpened. "And you sound disappointed." "I sound concerned." "No, Adrien. You sound like a man who keeps confusing concern with control." The yard went silent. My wolf hated her mouth. My blood admired it. I stepped closer. "This body is not only yours right now." The moment I said it, I knew it was wrong. Bella's face changed. The warmth left her eyes, replaced by something hard enough to break teeth on. "This body," she said slowly, "has always been mine. The baby is in it. You are not." Sloane looked away. Victor, damn him, stared at the trees. I forced myself to breathe through the instinct roaring in my skull. She was not Pack. She was not raised to hear protection and possession. And if I kept trying to hold her still, she would turn every sharp edge she had toward me. Perhaps she should. I looked at Sloane. No contact. Bella opened her mouth. I cut my gaze back to her. 10 minutes, footwork only, then Mara examines you. She studied me for a long second, suspicious of compromise. Then she said, "Look at us, co-parenting a dictatorship." Victor made a strangled sound. I ignored him. Sloane resumed the drill. Bella was good, not strong enough, not fast enough, not against wolves. But she watched everything. Shoulders, hips, weight shifts. She adjusted quickly, and when she made mistakes, she did not make the same one twice. The pack noticed. So did I. And then I smelled it. Heat. Too much of it. It rose off her in waves, sharp beneath the sweat and rain-damp earth. Her heartbeat quickened. Beneath it, the smaller pulse fluttered, then surged. My body reacted before thought formed. "Bella," I said. She pivoted away from another padded strike. "Stop." "I'm fine." "You're not." She took one more step. Her hand tightened around the practice blade. Then her knees gave out. I crossed the yard before anyone else moved. The blade hit the dirt. Bella fell into my arms, her body burning through the fabric between us. Too hot. Not fever hot. Something worse. Something unnatural, like power had kindled under her skin and found no way out. Her eyes were unfocused. Still, stubbornness survived. "Don't," she whispered. I didn't know whether she meant don't panic, don't carry her, or don't let everyone see. I lifted her anyway. The wolf inside me went silent. That frightened me more than rage would have. "Mara!" I commanded. The word cracked across the territory. Birds burst from the trees. Every wolf in the yard lowered their head. Mara was waiting in the infirmary by the time I reached it, because she was old enough and wise enough to move before being summoned twice. "On the bed," she said. I laid Bella down. Her skin radiated heat. Her breathing came too fast. A tremor ran through her hand, and I closed my fingers around it before I remembered her rule. "Don't touch me unless I say so." I let go. The loss of contact felt like tearing off armor in the middle of a battlefield. Mara cut away the tie at Bella's waist, pressed 2 fingers to her throat, then to her abdomen. Her expression tightened. "What?" I demanded. Silence. No one spoke to me that way. Mara did. Because she had delivered half my pack, buried the other half, and once stitched my shoulder closed while calling me a foolish boy for bleeding on her floor. She opened a vial beneath Bella's nose. Bella stirred but did not wake. "Her temperature is climbing too fast," Mara said. "Bring it down." "I am trying." "Try harder." Mara's eyes lifted to mine. "If you fill this room with alpha pressure, I will have Victor drag you outside." Victor, standing near the door, wisely pretended he had not heard that. I stepped back. Barely. Mara worked for several minutes. Cool clothes. Bitter-smelling herbs. A needle slipped into Bella's arm. A silver bowl filling with darkened water, as Mara murmured words older than my grandfather's bones. Nothing helped enough. Bella's breathing hitched. My claws pushed against my skin. "Mara." The healer set both hands on the edge of the bed. When she looked at me, there was no comfort in her face. "Her body is rejecting the pregnancy." The words did not make sense. They were too small for the destruction inside them. "No." "Yes." "No," I said again, and this time the windows shook. Victor moved closer to the door. Mara did not move at all. "The child is drawing from her," she said. "Not just food, heat, strength, blood force. Your line is too dominant, Adrien. Alpha heirs are difficult even for wolf mothers. In a human body, the pregnancy is burning through her faster than she can recover." I heard the words. I rejected every one of them. "Then stop it." "I can slow it." "Stop it." "I do not know if I can." The room warped. A stone cracked beneath my boot. Somewhere in the manor, a wolf whimpered under the force of my rage. My child. My heir. Bella. Bella, who had stood in my courtyard and refused to bow. Bella, who had fought 3 rogues with a knife in spite. Bella, whose courage had begun to move through my pack like a rumor no one wanted to believe. Dying. Because of me. Because of my blood. I turned away before the wolf took my face. A hand touched my wrist. Small. Hot. I looked down. Bella's eyes were barely open. Her voice came rough and thin. "You're being loud." Something in my chest broke quietly. "You collapsed." I took a tactical break. "This is not amusing." "Then why do you always look like you need one joke before you murder somebody?" Mara huffed once under her breath. Bella's gaze shifted to her. "How bad?" I said, "You need rest." Her eyes came back to me. Even half-conscious, she found the lie. "Don't wrap it up, pretty." Mara's face softened by a degree. "Your body is under severe strain." "Am I dying?" No one answered quickly enough. Bella swallowed. "That's rude," she whispered. I moved closer despite myself. "I won't let that happen." Her fingers curled weakly against the sheet. "That's not a medical plan." No, it's a promise. She held my gaze, exhausted and furious and afraid enough to make my wolf want to tear the world open. No decisions without me, she said. I leaned over her. Every instinct screamed to claim, command, bind, protect. Instead, I gave her the only thing she had asked from me that mattered. No decisions without you. Her eyes closed, but her grip found my wrist again, before sleep pulled her under. I did not move until Mara spoke. There may be old methods, she said quietly. Bond stabilizers, blood rights, forbidden records. None are simple. None are safe. Find them. Some were buried for a reason. I looked at Bella's hand on my wrist, then at the woman who might die carrying my child. Then we dig.
Mara kept me in bed for 48 hours, which felt excessive for what I continued to call a tactical break. She did not appreciate the branding. You collapsed, she said, pouring something black and steaming into a cup. I lowered myself dramatically. You were unconscious. For effect. Mara looked at me over the rim of the cup. Drink. I sniffed it and immediately regretted having a nose. Is this medicine or punishment? Yes. I drank it because arguing with Mara was like arguing with a brick wall that knew where your organs were. It tasted like burned roots, pennies, and personal betrayal. Outside my window, Adrian's territory moved on without me. Wolves crossed the courtyard in pairs. Guards changed posts. Somewhere beyond the trees, weapons cracked against each other in the training yard. Without me, which was rude. Adrien had not come in since I'd fully woken. He sent Mara. He sent food. He sent guards to stand outside my door like I was royalty, livestock, or a bomb. But he did not come himself. That bothered me more than it should have. Not because I missed him. Absolutely not. I was just irritated on principle. A man did not get to storm into my life, announce that my pregnancy could kill me, promise no decisions would be made without me, and then disappear into whatever dramatic alpha cave he kept under this oversized stone museum. He's avoiding me, I said. Mara tucked a blanket around my legs despite my glare. He's searching. For what? Answers. Cute. Did he plan to share those with the person whose uterus is apparently hosting a supernatural demolition project? Mara's mouth twitched. You are very difficult to comfort. I'm not decorative. Comfort me with information. She studied me for a long moment. Adrien is looking through old records, bloodlines, bonding practices, anything that might stabilize you. Stabilize, I repeated. Love when people make me sound like bad scaffolding. You nearly died yesterday. The room went quiet. I looked away first. The fire popped softly in the hearth. My hand settled low on my stomach, where that strange warmth rested. Not painful now. Just there, watching, waiting. Like the baby had its own little opinion about every conversation. Mara's voice softened. You are alive. That matters. Alive, and trapped in bed. Alive, she repeated, less softly. I let that sit because I didn't have a joke sharp enough to cut through it. By evening, I was done obeying. Mara had left after threatening to tie me to the mattress if I got clever. Anya had brought a tray of broth, toast, sliced fruit, and a look that suggested she thought humans fell apart if exposed to a stiff breeze. I waited 10 minutes after she left. Then I got up. My legs held, though they complained. My body felt too hot and too hollow at the same time, as if something inside me had been scooping out space without permission. I dressed in loose pants, a soft sweater someone had left folded at the foot of the bed, and socks thick enough to muffle my steps. The key Adrien had ordered Anya to give me sat on the nightstand. I locked the door behind me from the outside and smiled. It was petty. It helped. The manor was quieter at night, but not asleep. Old houses had voices, wood settling, pipes ticking, wind pressing fingers against glass. This place had all that, plus the low hum of wolves breathing behind doors. My hearing caught too much. A laugh from the kitchen. A whispered argument 2 floors down. someone sharpening a blade, then voices near the far end of the hall. "Don't put that in her room," Anya hissed. "I didn't know," another woman whispered. "It was in the East linen chest." "You should have checked." "It's only a shawl." "It was Lady Leora's." I stopped. "Lady who?" The second woman lowered her voice, but my new inconvenient ears caught every word. "If she were alive, none of this would be happening." "Keep your mouth shut. I'm only saying what everyone thinks. A human in the East Suite? Carrying his heir? After Leora?" Anya made a sharp sound. "Enough." Their footsteps hurried away. I stood in the corridor, barefoot inside my borrowed socks, pulse beating hard in my throat. Leora. The name landed like a stone dropped into water, rippling outward through things I had not known to question. A woman before me. Of course there had been a woman before me. Adrian Woods did not look like a man who had wandered through life untouched. He looked like a man built from old wounds and fresh violence. Still, knowing that was different from finding a name tucked into the walls of his house like a ghost. I followed the corridor because apparently self-preservation had taken the night off. The east wing opened into a gallery lined with portraits. Men and women stared down from dark frames, all sharp cheekbones, colder eyes, and the unbearable confidence people raised believing the world should move when they entered a room. Near the end hung a painting larger than the rest. Adrien stood in it, younger but not softer. Dressed in black formal clothes, one hand resting on the back of a carved chair. Beside him stood a woman with long silver blonde hair braided over one shoulder, and a spine straight enough to make the frame look crooked. She was beautiful in a way that felt weaponized, elegant, controlled, untouchable. At the bottom of the frame, a small gold plaque read, "Leora Vale, intended Luna of the Northern Pax. Intended." My chest tightened. "Well," I muttered, "that explains the shawl." She hated that portrait. I turned. Sloane stood near the archway, arms crossed, scar catching the lamplight along her jaw. "Does everyone in this house lurk professionally?" I asked. "When the Alpha's pregnant human guest wanders alone at night, yes. I'm not a guest, I'm a hostage with nicer bedding." Her gaze flicked over me. "Hostages don't usually get keys." "I'm very talented." Sloane did not smile. I looked back at the portrait. Who was she? For a second, I thought she wouldn't answer. Then she moved beside me, keeping a careful distance. Leora Vale. Daughter of one of the oldest wolf bloodlines in the north. Strong, fast, trained harder than most warriors. She was meant to be Adrian's Luna. Meant to be? They were engaged. There it was. Not a rumor, not a whisper. Fact. I folded my arms, suddenly aware of the loose sweater, the socks, the fact that I was standing in a dead woman's hallway, wearing borrowed clothes from a pack that already wished I'd never arrived. What happened? Sloane's face closed. She died. I gathered that part. She was killed 3 winters ago. Killed by who? No one knows. That sounds convenient. Her eyes cut to mine. Careful. No, I'm tired of that word. Everyone keeps telling me to be careful while feeding me half-truths through a straw. Sloane's jaw flexed. After Leora died, Adrien changed. Before, he was controlled because he had to be. Afterwards, he became ruthless because it worked. I stared at the painted version of him. Did he love her? The question came out before I could stop it. Sloane's expression sharpened, and that told me more than an answer would have. She was one of us, she said. She understood what he was, what this life demands. Unlike me, she didn't say it. She didn't need to. My hand moved to my stomach, and now he has me. Now he has an heir. The words hit clean. No theatrics, no raised voice, just a blade slid between ribs. I turned to her slowly. Say what you actually mean. Sloane held my gaze. I mean, Adrian Woods has buried one future Luna. The pack won't survive watching him lose the child too. The child, I repeated. She said nothing. The baby shifted warmth beneath my palm, small and fierce. I laughed once, but there was no humor in it. At least everyone's priorities are consistent. Bella, don't. I stepped back from the portrait. You don't get to look me in the face and reduce me to a heartbeat you'd like to preserve until delivery. Something flickered across Sloane's face. Regret, maybe. Or respect. It was gone too quickly to matter. A voice came from the shadows behind her. That is enough. Adrien. Of course. He stood at the entrance to the gallery, dressed in black, eyes fixed on Sloane with a coldness that made the air shrink. Sloane lowered her head. Alpha. Leave. She hesitated only long enough to prove she had spine, then walked past him without another word. Adrien and I were alone with the dead woman's portrait between us. How long were you standing there? I asked. Long enough. Great, then I don't have to recap. His gaze moved to the painting, and for the first time since I'd met him, something in his face slipped. Not much. A crack in stone. A shadow passing behind glass. Then it was gone. You should be resting, he said. I almost admired the audacity. Were you engaged to her? Yes. Was anyone planning to tell me? No. The honesty made me angrier. Why? Because Leora has nothing to do with you. I pointed at my stomach. Everything in this house has something to do with me now, whether I like it or not. His eyes darkened. Do not use her as a weapon. I didn't even know she existed 10 minutes ago. And now you think you understand? No, Adrien. I think I understand less than I did before. My voice lowered despite my best efforts. Is that why I'm here? Because I'm carrying what she never gave you? His stillness was terrifying. What did you say? You heard me. I brought you here because enemies are hunting you. Enemies hunting the heir. You are not separate from the danger. That is not an answer. His control frayed at the edges. I could feel it in the room, the pressure, the heat, the wolf pressing close beneath his skin. You think I look at you and see her? He asked. I don't know what you see. You don't tell me anything. He took one step closer. I see a woman who fights when she should run. Sounds inconvenient. I see someone too stubborn to admit when she's afraid. My throat tightened. He stopped in front of me, close enough that cedar and smoke wrapped around my senses. And I see the mother of my child burning alive because of my blood, he said. Do not mistake my silence for indifference. My anger faltered. I hated that. Then what is it? I asked. His gaze shifted just once to Leora's portrait. Punishment, he said quietly. The word changed the room. Before I could ask what he meant, he stepped back, rebuilding himself piece by piece, until the alpha stood where the man had nearly been. Mara will be told you left your bed. Snitch. You need rest. I need the truth. His eyes returned to mine. Those are rarely the same thing. Then he turned and walked away, leaving me in the gallery with a dead woman's name, a house full of whispers, and the horrible suspicion that Adrian Woods was not protecting me from the past. He was still living in it. By the third night, I was convinced Adrian Woods had been built in a factory that specialized in emotional constipation and murder. He had not apologized for the gallery. He had not explained Leora beyond 3 cold sentences. He had not returned to my suite except once while I was asleep, according to Anya, who said it like she expected me to swoon because the alpha had checked my breathing. Romantic. A man watched you sleep one time and suddenly everyone wanted you to be grateful instead of concerned. Mara cleared me to leave bed, under supervision, which meant I was allowed to walk around the manor with a guard pretending not to babysit me. I lasted 20 minutes before losing him near the laundry stairs, pregnant, overheated, and allegedly fragile. Still better at disappearing than a werewolf with a sword. Small victories mattered. I ended up near the council wing by accident. Mostly. The doors were cracked open. Voices carried through the gap, low and sharp. I recognized Victor first, then Sloane, then another man I didn't know, and Adrien. I felt him before I heard him. That was new. A pressure settled behind my ribs, cold and heavy. Not mine. I knew it wasn't mine because my emotions were currently busy being annoyed, nosy, and hungry for something with salt. This feeling was different. Older. Locked down so tightly it had become structural. It pulled at me. I put one hand against the wall. Inside the room, a man said, "The eastern border was breached again. 3 rogues dead. 2 escaped." "Find who is sending them," Adrien said. His voice was calm. The feeling in my chest was not. Fury moved under the calm, like lava beneath stone. Another voice, older, pompous, allergic to common sense, said, "The simplest answer remains the correct one. The human should be bonded and confined until birth." My fingers curled against the wood paneling. Sloane said, "Choose your next words carefully, counselor." "I am choosing them for the safety of the pack," the man snapped. "She is untrained, vulnerable, and carrying the only heir this territory has seen in generations. Only heir." There it was again. Not Bella. Not a woman. Container with legs. The cold pressure inside me sharpened so violently I almost gasped. Adrien spoke softly. "If you refer to her as an object again, I will remove you from this council." Silence fell. Not because he yelled, because he didn't. My pulse stumbled. The feeling in my chest shifted. Anger, yes. But beneath it, something rawer. Fear. Not the kind that ran. The kind that stood alone in a burning house and decided it would rather choke than call for help. I stepped back from the door. My heel hit something solid. Victor looked down at me. "Of course." "Are you lost?" he asked. "Spiritually or geographically?" His mouth twitched. "Both seem possible." I was taking a health walk. Outside the council chamber. "Very healthy door." He glanced toward it. "You should not listen to pack business." If pack business involves my uterus, I'm going to pencil myself in. Victor did not argue, which was becoming one of his more tolerable traits. Instead, he studied me. "You felt him." My spine went still. "What?" "The alpha." I looked away too fast. Victor sighed. "It has started then." "What has started?" He hesitated. I hated when wolves hesitated. It always meant they were about to say something supernatural and inconvenient. "The bond," he said. My laugh came out wrong. "No." That was not a question. "No," I repeated, firmer. "I am not bonding with a man who thinks communication is a form of weakness. It is not always chosen. Then it can unchoose itself. That is not how—" "Victor," he wisely stopped. From inside the council room, Adrian's voice cut through the door. "No one confines Bella Hart." My name in his mouth did something strange to the bond I was absolutely not accepting. Warmth flickered under the fear. Relief. Mine? His? Both? I hated the answer before I had it. That night, sleep avoided me like it owed me money. The suite felt too large, too quiet, too watched. The fire burned low, casting shadows up the walls. I lay on my side with one hand resting over the soft curve of my stomach, counting the strange pulses of warmth that came and went like tiny sparks. The baby was calm. I was not. Every time I closed my eyes, I felt Adrien. Not thoughts, not words, nothing that clean, just fragments, weight, restraint, a loneliness so deep it had stopped asking to be noticed. It made me furious, at him for carrying it like penance, at myself, for caring. Finally, I threw the blanket off and got up. "If anyone asks," I muttered to my stomach, "you started this." The pull led me through the manor without hesitation, down one staircase, across a dark hall, past a pair of guards who opened their mouths, saw my face, and made the excellent decision to reconsider. Adrien was in the old library. Of course he was. The room rose 2 stories, lined with books and carved ladders. A storm pressed against the windows, not violent yet, but gathering itself. Candles burned across a long table covered in maps, old journals, and brittle pages weighted down with knives. Adrien stood at the far end, sleeves rolled to his forearms, head bent over a book written in a language I didn't recognize. He looked tired. Not weak. Never that. But tired in a way even his body couldn't fully hide. "You're supposed to be asleep," he said without looking up. "So are you." "I am working. I am haunting." That got his attention. His eyes lifted to mine. For a second, the bond snapped clear. Concern struck me first, then relief. Then he buried both so quickly I might have imagined them. I stepped farther into the library. "Victor says this is a bond." Adrien closed the book slowly. "Victor talks too much. Everyone in this house talks either too much or not enough. You're in the second category." His gaze stayed on me. "It may be a mate bond beginning." The word mate landed between us like something alive. I folded my arms. "I didn't sign anything." "No." "I don't belong to you." "No." "You don't get to feel entitled to me because biology got drunk and made decisions." His mouth tightened, but he nodded once. "No." That took some of the wind out of my argument, which was rude. I had been prepared for a full fight. "What does it do?" I asked. "At first, emotions, pain, instinctive awareness. If it strengthens, distance matters less. And later?" His silence answered badly. "Adrien. Later, it can become difficult to separate one heartbeat from the other." My throat went dry. The storm tapped harder against the glass. "Was Leora your mate?" I asked. His eyes changed. Not anger this time. Grief. I felt it through the bond before his face admitted anything. "No," he said. "But you were engaged." "Yes." "Did you love her?" He looked toward the dark window. "I respected her, trusted her. We were raised to understand duty before desire." That is the saddest answer I've ever heard. It was our world. And now, his gaze returned to me. Now my world is standing in my library at midnight, arguing with me while she should be resting. I tried not to let that affect me. Failed. Recovered. "Do you care if I die?" I asked. The question came out too blunt, too ugly, but it had been sitting inside me since Sloane's words in the gallery. Adrien went utterly still. Through the bond, something broke loose. Fear hit me so hard I grabbed the back of a chair. Not fear of losing an heir, fear of losing me. It was dark and violent and helpless, and I did not know what to do with it. He took one step forward, then stopped himself. "Yes." One word. No decoration. My eyes burned. I blamed hormones, the bond, the storm, the architecture, anything else. "You barely know me," I said. "I know enough. You know I'm stubborn." "Yes." "Reckless. Frequently. Bad at following orders. Catastrophically. Despite myself, I laughed once." His expression softened by a fraction, and the bond warmed. Careful. Quiet. Dangerous. A sharp cramp twisted low in my abdomen. I sucked in a breath. Adrien was beside me instantly, but he did not touch me. "May I?" 2 words. Such a small thing. My pride wanted to refuse on reflex. My body had other opinions. I nodded. His hand closed around my wrist, firm but gentle. Heat moved between us, not feverish this time. Steady. Anchoring. The pain eased by degrees until I could breathe without pretending. Neither of us spoke. The storm built outside. "At last," I said, "if this bond turns me into someone who waits quietly in rooms, I'm going to be upset." "It won't." "How do you know?" "Because nothing in creation could make you quiet." I should have been offended. I was, unfortunately, comforted. Adrien looked back at the table. Mara found references to older rites. The historian arrives at dawn with records from the Northern Archive. Records about stabilizing me? His jaw flexed. And about the bloodline the child may carry. The warmth beneath my hand pulsed once. Adrien felt it too. His eyes dropped to my stomach, then lifted back to mine. The fear in him returned, threaded now with something colder. Dread. I kept my wrist in his hand. Then at dawn, I said, "You tell me everything." Outside, somewhere beyond the manor walls, a wolf began to howl. Another answered, then another.
Author's point of view.
Dawn did not arrive gently. It pushed through the library windows in thin gray light, catching on the knives Adrien had used to pin old maps flat across the table. The storm from the night before had moved east, but its damp breath still clung to the glass and stone. The whole manor felt awake in the wrong way, too quiet, too watchful, like every wolf inside it had heard something coming long before Bella did. Bella sat at the end of the table with Mara's latest cup of herbal punishment cooling between her hands. She had not agreed to sit because anyone told her to. She had agreed because her legs had started trembling halfway down the stairs, and dignity had suggested a chair before gravity made the suggestion louder. Adrien stood near the hearth, arms folded, his expression carved from all the usual materials: control, danger, emotional unavailability. But the bond had ruined the performance. Bella could feel him, not clearly, not like words, more like weather pressing against her ribs, worry, exhaustion, a dark, restless fear he kept trying to bury under authority. It made her want to throw something at him and ask if that helped. Victor stood by the door. Sloane leaned against one of the shelves, pretending not to watch Bella every other second. Mara hovered close enough to be annoying and far enough to pretend she wasn't hovering. 2 council members had been allowed in, though Bella suspected Adrien had chosen the ones least likely to survive saying something stupid. Councillor Halden was one of them, unfortunately. He had a narrow face, silver-shot hair, and the sour expression of a man who considered joy a threat to tradition. Bella disliked him immediately, which was efficient. The records did not arrive like books. They arrived like a body. 4 guards carried the iron-bound chest into the library just after sunrise, their shoulders tense beneath the weight of it. Behind them walked a thin old man in a dark traveling coat, his white hair tied at the nape of his neck, his fingers stained with ink. He bowed to Adrien first, then unexpectedly to Bella. "Bella Hart," he said. She blinked. "That's me. Usually people here just call me Trouble." The old man's mouth curved slightly. "Trouble is often history arriving before anyone is ready." "Great. Love that for me." Adrien's gaze flicked toward her. The bond warmed for half a second. Amusement, barely there, then gone. "This is Elias Rook," Adrien said, "historian of the Northern Archive." "Archivist," Elias corrected mildly. "Historians tell stories after the powerful are done lying. Archivists keep the evidence." Bella looked at Adrien. "I like him." "Most people don't," Adrien said. "Even better." Elias set a ring of keys on the table. They were old iron, each tooth carved in a different shape. He selected one marked with a crescent and unlocked the chest. The smell that rose from it was dust, smoke, old leather, and something metallic beneath. Mara stiffened. Adrien noticed. "What is it?" "Blood preservation," Mara said quietly. Bella stared at the chest. "Sorry, blood what?" Elias began removing wrapped bundles one by one. "Before paper survived us, skin did. Before ink, blood. These records were written during the Severance Wars." Halden's face tightened. "Those records are sealed." "And yet here we are," Bella said. His eyes cut to her. "You do not understand the danger of what is being opened." "No, but I'm starting to understand everybody in this house thinks saying ominous things counts as communication." Victor coughed into his fist. Adrien did not look amused this time, but the corner of his mouth gave him away. Elias unrolled the first record. Strange symbols marked the aged surface. Circles, clawed crowns, wolves with open jaws, a streak like lightning cutting through the center. The moment Bella looked at it, the baby moved. Not physically, not exactly. A pulse of heat bloomed low in her stomach, sudden and sharp enough to make her fingers tighten around the arms of the chair. Adrien moved before anyone else. He stopped beside her but did not touch. "Bella, I'm fine," she said, because apparently she was committed to lying in front of medical professionals. Mara gave her a look. Bella sighed. "Fine adjacent." Elias watched her carefully. The child recognizes the mark. The room went still. Bella's mouth went dry. The child is about the size of a lemon with supernatural anger issues. What exactly is it recognizing? Elias pointed to the symbol. The storm crown. Halden took a sharp step forward. Impossible. Sloane straightened from the shelf. Adrian's voice dropped. "Explain." Elias looked at Bella, not Adrien. Centuries ago, before the packs divided into territories, there was one ruling bloodline. Not kings as humans understand them, worse than kings. They did not merely command loyalty, their wolves could call to the wolves in others. Bella stared at him. "That sounds extremely unhealthy." "It was power beyond hierarchy," Elias said. "The first and greatest of them was Aaron Stormheart." The name struck the room strangely. Bella felt Adrien react through the bond before his face changed. Stormheart. Hart. Her fingers went cold around the cup. "No," she said. Elias did not soften the blow. Names change when families run. Sometimes they lose pieces. Sometimes they keep only what will not get them killed. Bella laughed once, but there was no humor in it. "My last name came from my father's side. Regular people, bills, family recipes, bad knees, no secret wolf monarchy." "You are human," Elias said, "but human blood remembers what wolves tried to bury." Halden slammed a hand against the table. "This is absurd. The Stormheart line was extinguished." "Among wolves," Elias said. "Yes." Mara's expression hardened with understanding. "But not all descendants remained wolves." Elias nodded. During the Severance Wars, the royal line was hunted pack by pack. Pregnant females, children, cousins, servants suspected of carrying even diluted blood. One child vanished from the slaughter records, a girl. No wolf ever found her body. Bella could hear her heartbeat, then another, tiny, fast, fierce. "She was hidden among humans," Elias said. "Her bloodline slept for generations." Bella looked down at her stomach. The warmth pulsed again. Adrian's control cracked across the bond. Fear surged so violently she almost turned toward him. He did not move, but the room seemed to bend around his stillness. "My child carries this bloodline," he said. "Our child," Bella corrected automatically. His eyes met hers. For 1 second, something quiet passed between them. Then Elias said, "Yes, the alpha strength of the Woods line has awakened what was dormant in Bella's blood. This child is not merely an heir to the northern packs. This child is the first storm-crowned blood born in centuries." No one spoke. Outside, the wind scraped branches against the window. Bella swallowed. "Okay, so hypothetically, if one is carrying a secret extinct king baby, what does that mean in practical terms?" Victor muttered, "King baby." Sloane shot him a look. Elias folded his ink-stained hands. "It means some packs will see the child as a miracle, a chance to unite territories that have hated one another for generations." "That sounds suspiciously like the nice version," Bella said. "It is. And the not nice version?" Elias's face became grave. "Others will see the child as a threat. A sovereign wolf could end every alpha line that refuses to kneel." Halden's voice went low. "Or become a tyrant." Bella looked at him. "The baby isn't born yet, counselor. Maybe give it 5 minutes before accusing it of dictatorship." "He's not wrong," Elias said gently. She turned back to him, anger flaring before fear could get comfortable. "Explain that carefully." The storm-crowned line was powerful because it answered emotion as much as blood. Protection, rage, fear, love, those things shaped the call. Elias glanced at Adrien. Raised in balance, such a child might unite the packs willingly. Raised in violence, hunted from the womb, it could learn the world only understands force. Mara's face tightened. That is why Bella's body is reacting so violently. Yes, Elias said. The child is not simply feeding, it is defending itself through her. Every threat around her may provoke more power, more heat, more strain. Adrian's gaze darkened. So the attacks are killing her faster. Potentially, Elias said. The bond twisted. Bella felt Adrian's guilt like a blade turning inward. She hated it, mostly because some foolish part of her wanted to reach for him. Instead, she lifted her chin. Then everyone can stop threatening to lock me up for my own good, Halden scoffed. This makes confinement more necessary, not less. Adrien turned his head. That was all. Halden stopped breathing for a second. No, Adrien said. Bella looked at him. Adrian's eyes remained on the counselor. No cages, no force, no hands on her without permission. If fear worsens the danger, then this pack will not become another threat she has to survive. The words landed hard. Bella did not thank him. Her throat felt too tight for that. Elias began rolling the record closed. There is another problem. Of course there is, Bella said. Why stop at one apocalypse before breakfast? The rogues who attacked you were not acting randomly. Elias slid a second sheet across the table. It showed the same storm crown symbol, but scratched through with black ink. There are old factions that believe the Stormheart line should have stayed buried. If they have sensed the child, the library doors opened. A scout stumbled in, rain clinging to his coat though the storm had passed. He dropped to one knee before Adrien. Alpha, Eastern Border Fires. Victor went rigid. Sloane was already reaching for the blade at her hip. How many? Adrien asked. 3 seen from the ridge, not raids. The scout lifted a strip of torn black cloth. On it, painted in rust-red strokes, was the storm crown split down the middle. A warning! Mara whispered something under her breath. Halden took a step back. Bella's hand settled over her stomach. The baby's warmth answered, bright and agitated. Adrien looked at the cloth, then at Bella. Through the bond, she felt the exact moment his fear became strategy. Cold, precise, deadly. Seal the eastern roads, he said. Double the inner patrols, quietly. No panic through the pack. Victor nodded. And the council? Adrian's stare moved across every face in the room. No one outside this library hears what was said here. Bella believed him. She also believed, with sudden and terrible certainty, that secrecy had already failed. Far beyond the northern compound, where the wet forest thinned into burned pine and black rock, a wolf knelt before a man seated beside a war fire. Magnus Voss did not rise when the messenger presented the blood-marked cloth. He only smiled. So, he said softly, watching the painted storm crown darken in the flame's glow. Woods found himself a miracle. Around him, armed wolves waited in silence. Magnus closed his fist around the cloth. Send word to every pack that still remembers the old war, he ordered. The king blood lives. The messenger bowed lower. And the mother? Magnus's smile faded into something colder. Bring her to me alive.
By breakfast, Adrian Woods had apparently decided my life would improve if it became smaller. Smaller room, smaller choices, smaller world. The order came dressed up in civilized language, because rich, dangerous men loved putting velvet on a cage. Temporary protective restriction, Adrien said. I sat across from him in the private dining room, staring at a plate of eggs I had not asked for, and toast cut into neat triangles, like someone thought geometry might improve my mood. It's confinement, I said. It is protection. It has guards at the doors. For your safety. And I'm not allowed past the inner wing. Until the threat is assessed. I leaned back in my chair. Say cage again, but slower. His jaw tightened. Good. Let it. The mate bond, which I'd not invited and still deeply resented, pressed his emotions against my ribs. He was calm on the outside. Of course he was. Adrien probably bled in straight lines, but beneath it, fear. Cold, brutal fear. Not the kind that shook, the kind that built walls and called them love. Mara stood near the hearth with her arms folded, watching both of us like she was calculating which body she would have to drag out first. Victor was by the door. Sloane had chosen the window, her expression unreadable. A full audience. Lovely. "You heard Elias," Adrien said. "The child's power reacts to threat." "Our child," I corrected. His eyes flickered. "Our child," he repeated. "And every enemy in the north may soon know what you carry." "What I carry," I said, "inside my body. I know that." "No, you know it in theory. Then you get scared and start making decisions, like I'm a box marked fragile." A muscle jumped in his cheek. "You collapsed 2 days ago. And somehow I survived without being shrink-wrapped." "Bella." "No." I stood too fast, and the room tilted for half a second. Adrien moved. I threw up my hand. "Don't." He stopped. That mattered. It also made me angrier, because some inconvenient part of me noticed. "I will not be locked away until everyone decides what to do with me," I said. "I am not your property. I am not a pack property. I am not some sacred womb with legs because an old man found a creepy blood scroll." Halden would have fainted if he'd heard that. Small mercy he wasn't invited. Adrian's voice dropped. "That is not what you are." "Then stop treating me like it." Silence cut across the room. Through the bond, his fear twisted into frustration. "I cannot protect you if you keep walking into danger." "Then teach me to survive it." His eyes darkened. "No," I laughed once. "Of course. You are pregnant. I noticed. You are already under strain. And being helpless will make that better?" His hands curled at his sides. Training could trigger another collapse. "Everything triggers something. Walking, sleeping, breathing near your counsel." I put a hand over my stomach, where warmth pulsed restlessly. "If fear makes this worse, then stop making me afraid of my own life." That landed. I felt it hit him through the bond. For a moment, the alpha cracked, and the man looked back at me, tired, haunted, furious with the world because he could not tear the whole thing apart fast enough to make it safe. Then the walls came up again. "The restriction stands," he said. My smile felt sharp. Then I guess we're both disappointed. I left before anyone could stop me. Well, I tried. Victor stepped in front of the door. I looked up at him. "Move." His gaze slid toward Adrien. "Victor," Adrien warned. Victor looked back at me, then stepped aside. "Interesting. Very interesting." I made it all the way to my suite before the shaking started. Not fear. Not exactly. Rage had a physical language. It lived in the hands, the jaw, the chest. It made me want to tear curtains down just to prove cloth could still move in this house. Anya found me pacing and wisely set a tray on the table without comment. "You're not going to ask?" I said. She glanced at the door, where 2 guards stood outside pretending not to listen. "I prefer living." "Smart." Her mouth twitched. "There are old laundry stairs behind the blue wardrobe." I stared at her. She adjusted the tray. I have said nothing. Then she left. I looked at the wardrobe, then at my stomach. "If you grow up with a rebellious streak," I murmured, "we're blaming your father for making rules badly." The laundry stairs were narrow, dusty, and apparently designed by someone who hated knees. They led down behind the kitchens, where heat and noise covered my escape. From there, it was easy enough to follow the sound of steel. Not the main training yard. Too exposed. This was smaller, older. A walled courtyard tucked behind the barracks, where frost still clung to the edges of the stone, and 6 women moved through drills with short blades. Sloane stood among them. Of course she did. She saw me immediately. "No. You don't know what I'm asking. You're asking to do the exact thing the Alpha forbade. I'm asking to learn how not to die. The other women slowed. One had red hair braided tight against her head. Another was broad-shouldered, with a broken nose that had healed crooked. A third looked young enough to still enjoy annoying authority. Sloane studied me for a long moment. "If you fall, I carry you tomorrow myself." "Fair. If you hide pain, I stop this permanently." "Unfair, but expected. If Adrien asks, I tried to stop you. You barely did." "I'm correcting that now." She tossed me a wooden practice knife. "Show me what you know." The first lesson was humiliating. Packfighting had rules: balance, footwork, breath. Wolves moved like violence had rhythm. I moved like a woman who had learned young that streets did not care about rhythm. "Again," Sloane said. I lunged. She knocked the blade from my hand. "Again." I swore, picked it up, and tried lower. She turned my wrist and could have broken it. "Again." By the fourth attempt, sweat ran down my spine, and the baby's warmth pulsed in warning. I stopped before Sloane told me to. Her brow lifted. "Good. Don't sound shocked." "I'm not. I'm relieved you have sense buried somewhere under all that attitude." "Deeply buried." The red-haired warrior laughed. Her name was Talia. Broken Nose was Nessa. Young and smug was Bryn. They taught differently than Sloane. Sloane corrected like a blade. Talia showed me where to step. Nessa taught me how to use someone else's strength when mine failed. Bryn tried to trip me and learned I had excellent instincts for revenge. For 3 mornings I disappeared through the laundry stairs. For 3 mornings I learned. Not enough to win a war. Enough to stop feeling like my body had become a locked room. On the 4th morning, Sloane put a practice knife in my hand and faced me herself. "Don't think," she said. "People keep asking me that. Very suspicious. Move." She came fast. I barely dodged the first strike. The second caught my shoulder hard enough to numb my arm. Pain flashed. The bond snapped tight somewhere in my chest, but I shoved it down and pivoted. Sloane expected me to retreat. So I stepped in. Her eyes widened a fraction. I hooked my foot behind hers, slammed my shoulder into her ribs, and used the knife's dull edge to press against the gap beneath her arm. The courtyard went silent. I was breathing hard. My knees shook. My shoulder hurt like hell. But the knife was there. A killing line. Sloane looked down at it. Then she smiled. "Well," she said. "Damn." The door behind us slammed open. Adrien filled the archway like a storm given bones. Every woman in the courtyard went still. My stomach dropped. Not from guilt, from the sheer force of what came through the bond. Fear first, then fury. Then something else when his eyes landed on the knife in my hand, and Sloane's position. Surprise. Slow. Sharp. Unwilling. Adrian's gaze lifted to mine. "You were confined." I was bored. Sloane muttered, "That was not the defense I would have chosen." Adrien stepped into the courtyard. Everyone out. No one moved. That, more than anything, told me things had changed. These women were still his warriors, still loyal. But their eyes flicked to me before they obeyed. Sloane was last to leave. She paused beside him. She stopped when she needed to. His stare did not move from me. Did I ask? "No," Sloane said. "That was the problem." Then she walked out. Brave woman. Possibly suicidal. Adrien and I stood alone in the cold courtyard, surrounded by scuffed stone and discarded wooden blades. "You felt pain," I said. His voice was quiet. "I felt fear." "That wasn't yours?" "It was mine after." My anger faltered, only a little. "I can't sit in a room waiting for someone to come take me," I said. "I won't." "You think I want you helpless?" "I think you want me safe so badly, you forget I'm still a person." His expression tightened. I expected another order. Instead, Adrien picked up a practice blade from the ground and held it out to me. My eyes narrowed. "What is this?" "A lesson." Yours or mine? His gaze burned into me. Both. I took the blade. He gave me no warning. He struck. I moved on instinct, stumbling back, then sideways. He was faster than Sloane, stronger than anything should be. Every motion controlled, every opening a trap, but he was holding back. That annoyed me. So when he came in again, I dropped under his arm, turned too close for comfort, and pressed my wooden blade to his side. Not enough to win. Enough to make a point. Adrien looked down at the blade, then at me. The bond warmed with reluctant admiration. I smiled. Careful. I might become useful. A horn sounded from the eastern wall. Once, then twice. Adrian's expression changed instantly. Victor appeared in the archway, face grim. Alpha. We found a gate seal broken from the inside. My grip tightened around the practice blade. Adrien looked at me, and this time, he did not tell me to go hide. Not yet. Victor's words sat between us like a blade on the floor. A gate seal was broken from the inside. For one breath, no one moved. Then Adrien changed. Not shifted, not physically. Nothing dramatic like claws or glowing eyes. It was worse than that. The man in front of me simply became something colder, sharper, built for war. Who found it? He asked. North Patrol, Victor said. Eastern Wall. No bodies yet. Yet, I muttered. Adrian's eyes cut to mine. I expected the order before he gave it. Back to my room. Lock the door. Let the wolves handle wolf business while I sat somewhere decorative and useless. Instead, he said, You go with Mara to the inner ward. Not your suite. I narrowed my eyes. That sounds dangerously close to hiding. It's where the children and elders are moved during a breach. That shut me up for half a second. Only half. And you? I asked. Eastern Wall. Of course. The bond pressed against my ribs, tight with his focus, and that vicious fear he kept trying to bury. He didn't want to leave me. He also couldn't ignore a breach in his territory. Being Alpha looked exhausting. I hated that I noticed. Sloane came back through the archway with Talia and Nessa behind her, all three already armed. The inner ward has 4 fighters, Sloane said. Make it 6, Adrien ordered. Quietly. If this is a test, I don't want panic spreading through the manor. And if it isn't? I asked. His gaze stayed on me. Then we don't give them what they came for. Me. He didn't say it. He didn't have to. A horn sounded again, longer this time. The courtyard seemed to shrink around us. Adrien stepped closer. Bella. Oh, good, my full name warning tone. Do not chase danger. I don't chase it. It keeps finding me. His jaw tightened. This is not a joke. I know. And I did. That was the worst part. For once, the fear under my ribs was mine too. Adrien held my stare like he was trying to force a promise out of me without asking for one. I gave him nothing. Promises were traps when the world was already on fire. Finally, he turned away. Victor, with me. They moved out fast, boots striking stone, warriors falling in behind them. Sloane lingered just long enough to point at me. Mara, now. You're bossy for someone who just watched me take you down. You tapped my ribs with a stick, Hart. Don't get sentimental. Then she was gone too. Mara appeared at my side like she'd grown out of the cold air. Move. I was moving. You were thinking about doing something stupid. Those are often connected. She grabbed my elbow anyway. The inner ward was not a room. It was a whole section buried behind the older bones of the manor, where the halls narrowed and the windows disappeared. Servants carried blankets. Guards guided elderly pack members through reinforced doors. Somewhere nearby, a child was crying, and someone was trying very hard to make it sound like a game. Anya spotted me near the entrance, her face tightened with relief. You came. Apparently, I'm maturing. No, Mara said. Fair. I was halfway into the ward when I saw Counselor Halden. He should have been with the other council members in the secure chamber. Instead, he moved alone along the side corridor near the old chapel, his silver-shot hair neat, his expression too calm for a man whose territory had just been breached. He carried an iron key. Not a little one. A heavy black key with a crescent cut into the bow. I saw its twin yesterday in Elias Rook's archive chest. My skin prickled. "Mara," I said, "I need to use the bathroom." She stared at me. "Now?" "Pregnant women are inconvenient. This feels like established knowledge." Her suspicion sharpened. "Bella, it'll be 2 minutes." "No." "Fine. 1." I stepped away before she could grab me again, slipping behind 2 servants carrying a crate of medical supplies. Mara cursed under her breath, but someone called for her from inside the ward, and that single second was enough. I followed Halden. The old chapel corridor smelled like wax and dust and damp stone. Voices drifted through the half-open door ahead. Halden's first. "The eastern breach has pulled Woods away." Another voice answered, rougher, unknown. "Voss said the mother is not to be harmed." Mother, not Bella. Never Bella. My hand found the knife I'd stolen from the training yard table 3 mornings ago. A sensible keepsake, really. Halden said, "Take her alive. If the inner ward resists, use the children." My blood went cold. The stranger laughed softly. "Your alpha keeps pups behind thick doors." "I gave you the lower service route," Halden snapped. "The laundry stair opens beneath the west pantry. The guards there answer to me." For a moment I forgot to breathe. Anya's laundry stairs. The same hidden path she had shown me. My secret exit had become their entrance. Halden continued, lower now. "Once the children scream, the fighters will break formation. The human will run toward them. She is predictable." My grip tightened around the knife. Predictable? That did it. I stepped back before anger made me reckless and knocked over a candlestand with my hip. The metal clattered against the stone. Silence. Fantastic. "Who's there?" the stranger growled. I ran. Not elegantly. Not quietly. Not like a wolf. Like a woman with limited time and a very strong desire not to be murdered in a chapel hallway. A shout followed. Boots hit stone behind me. The baby's heat flared low in my stomach, sharp enough to make me stumble. But I caught the wall and kept going. "Not now," I hissed. "We are busy." I burst into the inner ward so hard Anya dropped a stack of linens. "They're inside," I said. Mara turned. "Who?" "Halden." He opened the lower service route. "Enemy wolves are coming through the laundry stairs." For one terrible second, no one moved. Then a guard near the door said, "Counselor Halden would never—" "He just did." My voice cracked like a whip. "And if you waste time defending his reputation, children die." That moved them. Anya's hand flew to her mouth. Mara went still, then furious. "Talia!" Mara barked. The red-haired warrior appeared from the far archway. "What?" "Lower west pantry," I said. 2 routes from there." She stared. "How do you—" "Later, block 1. Send everyone else through the opposite hall toward the old smoke room." Talia looked at Mara. Mara nodded once. That was all it took. The ward erupted into controlled chaos. Children were gathered. Elders lifted. Doors barred behind us. I moved with Anya through the line, taking the hand of a little boy who had frozen near a bench. His lip trembled. "Where's my mother?" "What's your name?" I asked. "Nico." "Nico, I need you to help me do something brave." "I'm scared." "Good. Brave people usually are." He blinked at me like that was the first honest thing an adult had said all day. A crash sounded from the west pantry, then screaming. Not children. A man. Talia's voice rang out. "They're through!" Everything narrowed. Nessa shoved an elder behind the smoke-room door. Mara dragged 2 children after her. Anya pushed Nico toward me, and I pulled him close as a wolf in black leather burst into the corridor. He looked almost human. Almost. His eyes locked on my stomach. "There you are," he said. I hated that sentence. He lunged. Training did not make me graceful. It did not make me fearless. But it gave my panic somewhere to go. I shoved Nico behind me, stepped sideways the way Sloane had drilled into me, and slashed with the knife. The blade caught his forearm. He snarled. Not enough. He came again. This time I didn't retreat. I stepped in. The shock on his face was brief and satisfying. My shoulder hit his chest, my foot hooked behind his ankle, and when he staggered, Nessa came from the side and drove her blade into his ribs. He dropped. I stared down at him, breathing hard. Nessa stared at me. Street fighting, I said. Remind me never to mug you. Put it in the handbook. Another crash shook the hall. Gate, Talia shouted. The iron partition between the inner ward and west corridor had not fully lowered. One chain jammed halfway through the mechanism, because of course it did. I handed Nico to Anya and ran. Bella! Mara shouted. I ignored her. The chain was heavy, wet with old grease. I wrapped both hands around it and pulled. Nothing. A wolf slammed against the other side of the half-lowered gate, fingers curling beneath the iron edge. Pull! Talia yelled. I am pulling! Heat surged through me. Too much. Too fast. The baby moved. No, not moved. Pushed. Power snapped through my body like lightning caught under skin. The chain jerked free. The gate crashed down. The wolf's hand vanished just in time. Silence fell for half a breath. Then the ward exploded into sound again. Children crying. Warriors shouting. Mara swearing in 3 languages. I leaned against the wall, shaking. A thin cut burned across my forearm where the wolf's claws had grazed me. Mara reached me first. You are bleeding. I've had paper cuts with more ambition. Bella, I'm still standing. The main doors burst open. Adrien filled the entrance with blood on his coat and murder in his eyes. Not all the blood was his. Probably none of it, judging by the way he moved. The bond slammed into me so hard I had to grip the wall. Terror, relief, fury. His gaze swept the room, found the children alive, found the dead wolf, found the cut on my arm. Then, found me. What happened? He asked, voice dangerously soft. I pointed toward the old chapel corridor. Halden. Victor appeared behind him, dragging Counselor Halden by the collar. Sloane followed, blade drawn and face thunderous. Halden's neat hair had come loose. His dignity had not survived the trip. Good. He opened the service route, Victor said. 2 of his guards are dead. 3 enemy wolves captured. Adrien looked at Halden. The room seemed to forget how to breathe. You gave them our children, Adrien said. Halden lifted his chin. I saved this pack from your weakness. Adrien took 1 step forward. I felt the violence in his answer. Pure. Immediate. Adrien, I said. His eyes flicked to me. Not stopping him. Not forgiving Halden. Just reminding him where we were. Children still stood behind Mara's skirts. Anya held Nico against her side. The pack was watching. Adrien's jaw flexed. He did not kill Halden. Yet. Talia spoke from near the gate. Bella warned us first. Nessa wiped her blade clean. She got the children out. Anya added quietly. She closed the inner gate. 1 by 1, faces turned toward me. Not warm, not loving, but different. Respect in a wolf pack was apparently not soft. It was weight, attention, a recalculation. Sloane looked at my stance, the knife in my hand, the blood on my sleeve. Not bad, she said. I managed a tired smile. Careful. Compliments might ruin your reputation. Halden laughed. It was a horrible sound. You're all fools, he said, his eyes locked on the cut across my arm. Voss didn't need to take her today. Adrien went still. My stomach tightened. Halden smiled wider. He only needed blood.
Author's point of view.
For a moment, Halden's words seemed too quiet to matter. Then Bella's cut began to burn. Not sting, not ache. Burn. She looked down at the thin line across her forearm as the blood there darkened against her skin, gathering strangely instead of drying. The air around it tightened, pulled, as if something far away had hooked itself into her veins and started reeling. Mara was beside her in an instant. "Do not move." Wasn't planning on dancing. Adrian's eyes went black with fury as he turned on Halden. "What did you give him?" Halden's smile was small and satisfied. "A way in." The first scream came from the West Hall, then the second. The inner ward erupted. Warriors surged toward the sound. Children cried. Anya wrapped both arms around Nico and pulled him back as the iron gate behind them rattled violently, struck from the other side by something strong enough to bend old metal. Adrien crossed the room in 3 strides and seized Halden by the throat. "Alpha," Victor warned, not because Halden deserved mercy, but because the attack had already begun. Halden choked out a laugh. "Kill me if you want. Voss already has her trail." Bella pressed a hand over her stomach as heat pulsed through her. The baby reacted to the chaos, to the fear, to the blood being used like a key. Mara gripped Bella's arm and wrapped cloth around the wound. "The rite is active. We have to seal this." "How?" "Time," Mara said grimly, "and quiet." A crash shook the ward. Bella looked past Mara. Near the smokeroom corridor, 3 children had been separated from the others. Talia was fighting 2 enemy wolves at once. Nessa had gone down to one knee, blood running from a cut above her brow. A 4th wolf had slipped past them and was moving toward the children with terrible focus. Not toward Bella, toward the children. Halden had told the truth. They did not need to take her immediately. They needed to make her run. Bella moved. "Bella!" Mara shouted. Adrien turned at the sound of her name, but a wolf burst through the half-bent gate at the same time, forcing Victor into its path. The room became teeth, steel, and shouting. Bella snatched the bloodied cloth from Mara's hand, shoved through the smoke, and put herself between the children and the approaching wolf. His eyes dropped to the cloth, then to her stomach. "There you are," he growled. Bella lifted the cloth like a flag. "Yeah, and I'm leaving." Then she ran. She did not run blindly. That was what they expected. Bella ran toward the old laundry stairs because she knew them now. She ran past the west pantry, past the broken service door, past the cold storage room with its stone shelves and hanging hooks. Behind her, boots hit the floor. 1 set, then 2. "Good. Come on," she hissed, breath already burning. "Be predictable." The baby's heat rolled through her again, harder this time. Her vision blurred at the edges, but she forced her feet forward, down the narrow passage, left at the cracked wall, out through the servants' courtyard where rain had turned dirt into black mud. The morning air slapped her face. A wolf lunged from the side. Bella ducked barely. Claws tore through the sleeve of her coat instead of her throat. She slashed with the knife still clutched in her hand and felt the blade catch flesh. The wolf snarled. She did not stop. Behind her, Sloane's voice roared from somewhere in the manor. "Hart!" Too far. Bella crossed the courtyard and stumbled into the old orchard beyond the kitchens. Bare branches clawed at the gray sky. The compound wall loomed ahead, but the eastern side was crowded with warriors and smoke. The enemy had chosen well, so had she. There were no children in the orchard. No elders. No Anya holding Nico with shaking hands. Only Bella, the wolves chasing her, and the bitter bite of winter mud under her boots. One of them hit her from behind. She went down hard, the air knocked out of her lungs. Pain flashed through her shoulder. She rolled before he could pin her, driving her knee up with every ounce of strength left in her body. He grunted. She stabbed his thigh. The second wolf caught her wrist and twisted until the knife fell. Bella spat in his face. He looked almost impressed before he pressed a cloth over her mouth. The scent was sharp, herbal, wrong. Mara would have known the name for it. Bella only knew that her body rebelled. The world tilted. The bond inside her chest stretched violently toward Adrien, hot and frantic. She felt him for one blazing second. Rage, terror, movement. Then iron-cold darkness slammed between them. Bella did not scream. She bit the hand holding her until she tasted blood, then everything went black. Adrien felt the bond vanish, not break, vanish, as if a door had been slammed shut between his ribs and hers. The wolf in front of him died before it hit the floor. No one in the inner ward moved when Adrien turned. Blood marked his coat. None of it slowed him. His eyes found Mara first, then the children, then the open passage leading west. "Where is she?" Mara's face was tight with fury and fear. "She drew them away," a small voice answered from behind Anya's skirts. "She told them to chase her," Nico whispered, "so they wouldn't get us." Something in Adrian's expression changed. Not softened, not broke, changed. The alpha who ruled the northern packs had always been feared. What stood in the inner ward now was worse. "Victor," Adrien said. His lieutenant stepped forward. "Halden breathes until I return." Halden's smile faltered for the first time. Adrien looked down at him. Then he explains every name, every door, every message slowly. Victor's mouth curved without humor. "Understood." Sloane appeared at the west passage, mud on her boots and blood on her blade. "Tracks in the orchard. 3 wolves, 1 wounded. They crossed the outer ditch." Adrien moved before she finished. By noon, the northern border was no longer quiet. Adrien tore through Voss's first scouting post at Black Fir Ridge with 6 wolves at his back and left no banner standing. At the creek crossing, he found a dead horse, 2 abandoned cloaks, and Bella's torn sleeve snagged on a thorn branch. He held the cloth in his fist. The bond remained muffled, buried beneath blood magic and iron. But beneath that silence, faint as a coal under ash, he felt one thing: anger. Bella was alive and furious. "Good," Adrien whispered. Victor looked at him. "Alpha?" Adrien lifted his head toward the south road. "She's not waiting." Bella woke to chains. That annoyed her more than the headache. The room around her smelled of wet stone, old smoke and rot. Some kind of abandoned furnace house, maybe. Brick walls, rusted beams, a narrow window too high to reach. The floor sloped slightly toward a drain clogged with leaves. Her wrists were shackled to an iron ring bolted into the wall. Bad planning on their part. Old buildings always told on themselves. Bella tugged once, testing the chain. Pain shot up her arm, but the ring shifted almost imperceptibly in the crumbling mortar. She exhaled slowly. "Okay," she murmured. "Not dead, chained, hate that, but workable." The baby pulsed low in her stomach, restless and hot. "I know," she whispered. "I'm upset too." Footsteps sounded outside. Bella went still. The door opened and Magnus Voss stepped inside. He was broader than she expected, not as controlled as Adrien. Adrien was winter under glass. Magnus was a wildfire pretending to be a man. His gaze slid over her with interest, but not desire. Ownership. Bella hated him immediately. "Bella Hart," he said. "Let me guess. You practiced that in a mirror." His mouth curved. Woods chose an entertaining vessel. "Call me a vessel again, and I'll make sure you need a healer to sit down." One of the guards behind him growled. Magnus raised a hand, amused. "There it is. Stormheart temper." Bella's fingers curled around the chain. "You don't know me." "No, but I know what you carry. My child." "For now." The room sharpened around those words. Bella said nothing. Magnus stepped closer, stopping just beyond the reach of her chain, smart enough not to underestimate her completely. Unfortunate. "Adrian Woods will come for you," he said. "He always comes roaring after what he loves." Bella's throat tightened despite herself. Magnus saw it. His smile deepened. He never learns. Last time he came too late. Bella forced her face still. Last time. Silver blonde hair in a portrait. A dead fiancé. A name spoken carefully in Adrian's house. Lyora Vale. Magnus turned toward the door. "Keep her alive. No bruises where the right will mark her. The blood moon is soon, and king blood must be persuaded properly." Bella waited until the door closed. Then she let herself breathe. Not panic. Plan. She searched the room again. Rusted beams, old furnace tools, loose mortar, a water cup near the door, one lamp hanging from a hook, a guard outside who shifted his weight every few minutes, favoring his left leg. And in her braids, tucked close against her scalp, one thin brass pin Anya had used 2 nights ago after fussing about loose strands. Bella almost laughed. She worked it free slowly, careful not to drop it. Her hands shook, partly from weakness, partly from rage. The shackle lock was old, heavy, proud of itself. Bella knew old locks. Hart and Company had restored townhouses with doors older than this prison, and rich people loved antique hardware until it trapped them inside their own bathrooms. The first pin bent. She cursed under her breath and straightened it with her teeth. The second attempt caught. Click. One wrist came free. She almost cried from relief. Instead, she wrapped the loose chain around her hand and slumped sideways on the floor. "Guard," she rasped. "Something's wrong." No answer. She let her breathing turn ragged, ugly. "The baby!" The door opened fast. Predictable man. The guard stepped in, eyes dropping first to her stomach, then to the loose shackle half hidden beneath her coat. Too late. Bella swung the chain into his face with both hands. He crashed into the wall. She grabbed the lamp and smashed it against the floor between them. Oil splattered. Fire climbed greedily along the spill, cutting him off as he snarled and lunged. Bella took his keyring and ran. The corridor beyond was narrow and dark, lined with storage rooms. Voices shouted behind her. Bells started clanging somewhere overhead. She did not run toward the main door, too obvious. Instead, she followed the draft. Old furnace houses needed vents, chimneys, service shafts, ways for smoke to escape. Halfway down the hall, she passed a room with maps spread across a table and weapons stacked in crates. A silver pendant lay beside a blood-marked letter, its chain broken. Bella stopped for one dangerous second. A wolf's head surrounded by 3 stars. Veil. She snatched it up and shoved it into her pocket. Then she found the furnace shaft. It was filthy, narrow, and possibly home to several dead things. "Lovely," she muttered and climbed. By the time Bella dragged herself out into the cold air behind the furnace house, smoke was pouring from the lower windows, and men were shouting her name like it belonged to them. It did not. She staggered into the trees, one hand over her stomach, the other gripping the stolen keyring. Far behind her, a wolf howled. Another answered from the north. Adrien. Bella felt him then. Not clearly, not safely, but there. A storm pressing against the dark. She pulled the broken veil pendant from her pocket and stared at it as rain began to fall through the branches. "Adrien," she whispered, understanding nothing yet except that Magnus had lied less than she wanted him to. Behind her, something crashed through the woods. Bella closed her fist around the pendant and ran.
The crash came again from somewhere behind me. Too close. I ran harder, which was impressive considering my body had recently been kidnapped, chained, drugged, and forced through a furnace shaft clearly designed for rats with death wishes. Branches whipped at my coat. Mud sucked at my boots. Rain slid down my face and into my eyes, turning the woods into a smear of black trunks and silver movement. My fingers stayed locked around the pendant, veil, the wolf's head, the 3 stars. Leora's crest. I had no idea why Magnus Voss had kept it near blood-marked letters and maps of Adrian's territory, but I knew trophies when I saw them. Men like Voss did not keep sentimental objects. They kept proof. Another snarl rolled through the trees. I twisted, stumbling backward, and raised the stolen keyring like that was going to save me. A wolf burst from the brush. I saw teeth. Then a shadow hit him from the side. The impact shook the ground. Both bodies slammed into a tree hard enough to crack bark. There was a flash of claws, a wet sound, and then the attacking wolf dropped. Adrian Woods rose above him. For one breath, I forgot how badly I wanted to stay upright. The bond snapped open between us like a door kicked off its hinges. His fear hit first, not anger, not control. Fear. It poured through me so violently my knees almost gave out. Adrien crossed the distance before I could blink, but stopped just short of touching me. Like he remembered. Like even now, with blood on his coat and death at his feet, He remembered I hated being grabbed. Bella. My name and his voice almost ruined me. Almost. I lifted the keyring higher. If you say I told you so, I'm throwing these at your head. His mouth tightened. Not a smile, not even close. But something moved in his face. You escaped. I'm charming and difficult to contain. You're bleeding. So are you. Most of it isn't mine. Of course it isn't. The world tilted then, just a little. I caught myself on a tree, my hand sliding against wet bark. Adrien moved again, then stopped again, every muscle in him fighting itself. You can help, I said, because apparently nearly dying had not cured me of pride. You just can't carry me like a stolen rug. His hand came to my elbow, firm but careful. The warmth of him steadied me more than I wanted to admit. Sloane appeared between the trees a moment later, blade drawn, eyes sweeping over me. You look terrible, she said. I missed you, too. Her gaze flicked to the dead wolf. Only one followed. 2 guards inside. One is probably reconsidering his career. The building is on fire. Sloane stared. Adrien did not. His eyes had dropped to my hand, to the pendant. The change in him was immediate. The bond went cold. Not empty. Worse. Locked down so hard it hurt. Where did you get that? He asked. I opened my fingers. Rain gathered in the grooves of the silver crest. Wolf. 3 stars. A broken chain. In Voss's furnace house, I said. It was in a room with maps, weapons, and letters marked with blood. My blood, I think. Adrien looked at the pendant like it had reached through 3 years and put a knife under his ribs. Sloane swore softly. That told me enough to be afraid. What? I asked. Adrian's jaw worked once. We need shelter. No, we need answers. And you need heat before your body gives out. I hated that he was right, mostly because my teeth had started to chatter. Sloane led us east through the trees to an old watch hut tucked beneath a ridge. It was barely more than stone walls, a slanted roof, and one stubborn door, but it kept out the rain. Adrien checked the corners before letting me inside. Sloane stayed at the entrance, facing the woods. Because that was what wolves did. Guarded doors, bled quietly. Pretended fear was strategy. Adrien took off his coat and put it around my shoulders. I let him. That seemed to surprise both of us. Inside, the air smelled of damp ash and cedar. There was an old bench beneath the window. I sat before my legs could make the decision for me. Adrien crouched in front of me and reached for my arm. This needs cleaning. I need the truth first. His eyes lifted. The bond pressed with grief so old it felt carved into him. I swallowed. Why did Voss have Leora's pendant? For a long moment, rain was the only answer. Then Adrien took the pendant from my palm. He held it carefully. Not like treasure. Like evidence. Like a bone. Leora Vale wore this the night she died, he said. The hut seemed to shrink. I had known it. Some part of me had known from the second I saw that crest sitting in Voss's den like a prize. Still, hearing it made my stomach twist. You said she was killed 3 winters ago. Yes. By rogues? That was what we believed. But not now. His thumb brushed over the 3 stars. Not now. I leaned back against the stone wall, suddenly very aware of the baby's warmth beneath my ribs. Tell me. Adrian's silence stretched. I almost snapped at him, but then the bond shifted, and I felt what sat under his control. Not just grief. Shame. A brutal, bottomless kind. He looked down at my blood-streaked sleeve instead of at me. Leora and I were promised to each other through Pack Alliance, he said. The Vale line controlled the western passes. My council wanted the bond formalized. Her family wanted protection from Voss. Did you love her? The question came out before I could make it less sharp. Adrien did not flinch. I cared for her, he said. Respected her. She would have made a strong Luna. Not the answer of a man hiding some grand tragic romance. Not the answer of a liar either. She wasn't your mate, I said. No. That should not have mattered. It did anyway. I hated myself a little for the relief. Adrien saw too much. He always did. You are not a replacement for her, Bella. My throat tightened. I didn't ask. No, he said quietly, but you wondered. I looked away first. Cowardly. Necessary. He continued, voice low. 3 winters ago, Voss requested parley near the border. Leora insisted on going. She believed if she could negotiate with him, Vale bloodshed would end. I was supposed to meet her escort halfway. What happened? A false attack drew me north. His fingers closed around the pendant. By the time I reached the pass, her guards were dead. Leora was dying. The rain hit harder against the roof. I pictured the portrait in Adrian's manor. Silver blonde hair, elegant face, a woman frozen forever in oil and guilt, while everyone whispered around her name. What did she say? I asked. Adrian's eyes went distant. Nothing. Her throat had been torn out. Oh, my anger softened around the edges, but it did not disappear. It just found a different target. Adrien. I searched for proof for years, he said. Voss denied it. The wounds were made to look like rogue work. The pendant was gone. Halden argued war without evidence would fracture the northern packs. Halden knew. I think Halden helped arrange the false attack. The words landed between us like stones. Of course, one betrayal tied to another. Rot always had roots. And you blamed yourself, I said. His mouth curved without humor. I was Alpha. She died under my protection. That is not the same thing. It is to me. Then you're wrong. His gaze snapped to mine. Good. Let him hear it. You're wrong, I said again. Voss murdered her. Halden betrayed you. Leora made her own choice to go. You can carry grief if you want, but don't dress guilt up as responsibility and call it noble. Something flickered in his expression. Pain, maybe. Or anger. Or the kind of truth that scraped on the way in. You think it is that simple? He asked. No, I think men like you make suffering complicated because if it's complicated, you can keep punishing yourself forever. Sloane made a suspicious sound from the doorway. Possibly a cough, possibly respect. Adrien ignored her. His eyes stayed on me, sharp and wounded, and too human for the monster everyone feared. Everyone close to me becomes a target, he said. Leora, my allies, now you. Voss targeted me because of what I carry. Because of me. Because of our child, I corrected. Because of bloodlines and power and old wolf politics. I still need a chart to understand. But listen carefully, Adrian Woods, because I am exhausted and recently set a building on fire. I am not going to live inside your fear. The Bond trembled. His hand came up, stopping inches from my face before he let it fall. I thought I had lost you, he said. No command in it. No alpha. Just a man whose control had finally cracked enough for the truth to show through. My chest hurts. I know, I whispered. I felt the bond vanish. I felt it too. I found your sleeve in the thorns. I liked that coat. His laugh was rough, broken at the edges. It lasted half a second and disappeared, but I saw it. I wanted to touch him then. Not because the bond pushed. Not because pregnancy had made my life ridiculous. Because the man in front of me had spent 3 years building himself into a weapon, so no one would see the wound underneath. I reached out first. My fingers brushed his wrist. He went very still. I'm still here, I said. His eyes closed briefly. Because you saved yourself. Damn right. That time, the almost smile was real. Sloane stepped inside before either of us could do something emotionally dangerous. Victor found the furnace road, she said. Voss's men are moving south, not retreating, gathering. Adrien rose slowly. The alpha returned, but not the same as before. Colder, yes, deadlier. But his hand remained wrapped around Leora's pendant. "When?" he asked. Sloane's expression tightened. "Blood moon rises tomorrow night." The baby shifted beneath my palm, heat blooming like a warning. Adrien looked at me. I already knew what he wanted to say. Hide, rest, stay behind walls. He did not say it. Good man. Learning. I stood, pulling his coat tighter around me. If Voss wants blood and old crowns, then we stop letting him choose the battlefield. Adrian's gaze burned into mine. Outside, far off through the rain-soaked trees, a war horn sounded. The horn did not stop. It rolled through the rain-soaked trees, low and brutal, shaking loose every bit of false quiet the woods had left. I looked at Adrien. That sounds less like a warning and more like an invitation. His gaze stayed fixed toward the compound. Voss is moving early. Sloane stepped out from the doorway of the watch hut, blade already in her hand. Not early. He's forcing the blood moon ground before we can prepare it. I hated how quickly both of them understood what that meant. I hated it more that I was starting to understand it too. Voss did not just want me dragged into some dark room with candles and old wolf nonsense. He wanted timing. Blood. Moonrise. The kind of ritual Elias had spoken about in the library, like history was safely dead. History apparently had teeth. Adrien turned to me. "Bella, no." I didn't say anything. "You made the face." His eyes narrowed. "What face?" "The hide her behind stone walls before she does something inconvenient face." Sloane made a sound that might have been a laugh if she were a different woman. Adrien ignored her. "You can barely stand. I escaped a furnace house, climbed through a chimney, set a building on fire, and stole evidence from your enemy's war room." I pulled his coat tighter around me. "My definition of barely standing is clearly more ambitious than yours. This is not pride. This is war. Good. Then stop talking to me like luggage." The bond between us tightened. For once, I felt him catch the words he wanted to say before they became commands. Progress. He stepped closer, rain sliding through his dark hair and down the hard line of his jaw. "If you fight beside me, you obey when I tell you to move. If you order me like a dog, I'll ignore you on principle." "Bella." "Say please." Sloane turned fully away from us. "I'm going to scout before this becomes embarrassing." Adrien stared at me like he wanted to throttle me and kiss me and lock me in a tower all at once. Finally, he said, "Please." I nodded. "See? Growth." We moved fast after that. Not fast enough for Adrian's liking, probably, but I refused to be carried. He settled for keeping one hand at my back whenever the path dipped or roots tried to finish what Voss started. I allowed it because I was learning too, apparently, and because my body felt like a cracked bell ringing from the inside. By the time we reached the compound, the sky had darkened into bruised purple. The moon had not risen yet, but everyone could feel it coming. The courtyard had become a war machine. Warriors tightened straps, passed blades, checked gates. Elders moved children underground into the deep stone rooms beneath the kitchens. No one cried loudly. That somehow made it worse. Nico saw me near the steps and broke away from Anya. "Bella!" Anya tried to stop him, but he slipped under her arm and crashed into my side with enough force to make Adrien growl. "Careful," Adrien said. Nico froze. I put a hand on the boy's shoulder. "Ignore him. He growls when he's emotionally overwhelmed." Adrien gave me a look. Nico reached into his pocket and shoved something into my hand. A little strip of blue cloth tied into a knot. "For luck," he said. "My mother gave it to me." My throat tightened. "Oh, sweetheart, you should keep this." He shook his head. "You run toward bad things." "That is unfortunately true. So you need it more." I closed my fingers around the cloth. "Then I'll bring it back." His small face hardened with all the bravery children should never have to learn. "Promise?" I hated promises. I made this one anyway. "Promise." Mara found me 3 seconds later and immediately started looking furious. "No," I said. She stopped. "You don't even know what I was going to say. You were going to say bed, broth, bandages, and possibly sedatives. All excellent suggestions. Later." Her sharp eyes dropped to my stomach. There may not be a later if that child keeps answering every threat with power your body cannot hold. The baby moved at her words, heat blooming low and deep. Adrien felt it through the bond. His hand twitched. Mara turned to him. The tracking right is still hooked into her blood. If Voss reaches the blood moon height first, he can pull on the child's power and mark it. "And sever it," Adrien said. "I can," Mara replied. "At the old circle, with her conscious, with her blood willingly given, and with every enemy in the north trying to stop us." I looked between them. "That sounds terrible." "It is," Mara said. "Will it keep Voss from using me like a door?" "Yes." "Then we do it." Adrian's voice went low. "Bella." I stepped closer before he could retreat into fear disguised as leadership. "You said please once today," I told him. "Don't ruin your streak." His expression did not soften, but something in the bond did. Acceptance. Not peace. Never peace. But trust, hard-won and reluctant. The old circle sat beyond the northern wall, where black standing stones rose from the hill like broken teeth. By the time we reached it, the rain had stopped. That worried me. Storms had followed me since the festival, since Adrien, since the baby. Now the air held still, waiting. Elias Rook stood beside the largest stone, robes damp, ink-stained fingers clutching a book that looked older than common sense. "Stormheart blood does not kneel," he said when I entered the circle. "Good," I muttered, because my knees hurt. Sloane handed me a short blade. "Stay behind my left shoulder if the line breaks." I thought Adrien said beside him. "Adrien is sentimental." "I heard that," he said. "Good," Sloane replied. Mara drew a ring of ash around my boots, then tied the blue cloth Nico had given me around my wrist. "For luck?" I asked. "For memory," she said. "Power needs an anchor." The first horn sounded from the tree line. Then another. Then howls. The blood moon rose. Red light spilled over the hill, touching stone, steel, faces. My cut arm began to burn again. The old mark Voss had made through stolen blood tugged inside me like a hook. Mara gripped my wrist. "Now!" I held out my hand. Adrien went rigid when the blade kissed my palm. Not deep. Not dramatic. Enough. Blood welled and Mara caught it in a silver bowl already marked with symbols that shifted when I looked too closely. She began to chant. The hill exploded. Wolves burst from the trees in a wave of black leather, claws, and steel. Adrien met the first line before they reached the stones, his body moving with brutal precision. Victor was at his right, Sloane at his left. And me? I did not hide. When a wolf broke past Talia and came for Mara, I stepped into his path and drove Sloane's blade into the soft place beneath his ribs. His shock was almost insulting. "Yes," I snapped as he dropped. "Pregnant." The circle flared blue-white. Lightning cracked overhead, though there had been no storm. Mara's chant broke for half a second. Elias shouted, "Hold the line!" Voss walked out of the trees like he had been invited. He wore no crown, but every wolf around him moved as if he did. His gaze passed over the fight and landed on me with that same ownership I hated. "Little Storm, mother," he called. "Still pretending this child belongs to you?" Adrien turned at the sound of his voice. The bond was filled with murder. I grabbed Adrian's wrist before he could charge blindly. "No." His eyes flashed to mine. "He wants you to be reckless," I said. Voss smiled. Leora said nearly the same thing before she died. The world seemed to hold its breath. Adrien went still. Not calm. Worse. Empty. Voss lifted his hands. She was brave too. Brave women die beautifully when men like Woods fail them. I felt Adrien fracture. So I stepped in front of him. Voss's smile faded. Good. You talk too much, I said. Then the hook in my blood yanked hard. Pain tore through me. I staggered, one hand locking over my stomach as the child's power surged up in answer. Not fear, rage. The standing stones began to hum. Mara shouted my name, but her voice sounded far away. The blood moon burned overhead. Voss pulled, and something inside me pulled back. For one terrifying second, I understood what he wanted. The child as crown, the child as a weapon, the child as proof that every old king and butcher had been right to hunt bloodlines into graves. No, I whispered. Power slammed through me. The sky split open. Lightning struck the circle, but it did not burn me. It wrapped around the ash ring, around Nico's blue cloth, around Adrian's hand when he reached for me. Not taking, holding. I looked at Voss through the storm. My child is not your throne. The stones answered. Voss lunged. Adrien met him halfway. They crashed together with a force that shook the hill. Claws tore, steel rang. Voss was strong, stronger than any wolf I had seen except Adrien. But rage had made him hungry, and hunger made openings. Sloane tried to reach them, but two enemy wolves cut her off. I saw Voss's hand close around Adrian's throat, saw the blade hidden in his other palm, silver, moving toward Adrian's heart. My body moved before thought caught up. I grabbed the fallen short blade from the mud and drove it into Voss's side with both hands. He roared and backhanded me. The world flashed, but I did not fall. Adrien caught me with one arm and struck with the other. Together we forced Voss back against the largest stone. The storm gathered above him, wild and waiting. Adrian's eyes locked on mine. No command. A question. I nodded. Adrien drove his blade into Voss's chest as I twisted mine deeper into his side. Lightning came down. Voss screamed once, then the enemy Alpha who had hunted Leora, hunted my child, and tried to turn my blood into a leash dropped at our feet. The war did not end all at once. Wars never did. But something broke in Voss's wolves when he fell. Some ran, some surrendered. Some died fighting because monsters always convinced fools to follow them into graves. I stayed standing until Mara reached me. Then my knees gave out. Adrien caught me before I hit the ground, and this time I did not argue about being held. Something hot and sharp rolled through my stomach. Not power, not the bond. Mara's face changed as she pressed her hand beneath mine. I knew before she said it. Adrien did too. The blood moon still burned above us when Mara looked up and said, "The child is coming." The child is coming. For one ridiculous second, I thought Mara had lost her mind. Then pain tore through me hard enough to steal the air from my lungs, and I decided arguing with medical professionals could wait. Now? I gasped. That is deeply inconsiderate timing. Adrian's arms tightened around me. Mara. Do not use that tone on me, Mara snapped, already pressing her hand to my stomach. Use your legs. Get her inside. I can walk, I said. Another contraction hit. I changed my mind immediately. Fine, I ground out. But if anyone calls this romantic, I'm biting them. Adrien lifted me carefully. Not like property, not like a prize, but like something breakable he was terrified of breaking. For once, I did not insult him for it. The battlefield blurred around us. Warriors shouted. Wolves dragged the wounded from the hill. The blood moon still burned overhead, red light spilling across mud, stone, and steel. People moved aside when Adrien carried me through the courtyard. Not because he was Alpha. Because they were looking at me. At the woman who had stood in the circle. At the human who had bled, fought, and not bowed. I would have enjoyed that more if my body wasn't trying to split itself open. Mara's healing room was chaos within seconds. Hot water, she barked. Clean cloth, ash root, silver bowl. No, not that one. Are you blind? Anya appeared at my side, face tight with worry. Sloane took position by the door with a blade in each hand, as if death itself might try entering, and she planned to argue. Adrien set me on the bed. Then he stayed. Mara looked at him. If you faint, I'll throw you out. I don't faint. Men say that before they hit the floor. I grabbed Adrian's wrist before he could answer. Stay. His eyes found mine. All the fury was gone now. All the alpha command. What remained was worse. Fear. I'm here, he said. The next pain dragged a sound out of me I did not recognize. Mara worked fast, hands steady, voice low. Listen to me, Bella. Alpha pregnancies do not follow human calendars. The child is ready because the power forced readiness. That does not mean this will be easy. Nothing about this has been easy. No, she said. But you have been stubborn enough to survive every terrible thing so far. That's your bedside manner? That's encouragement. Adrian's thumb brushed over my knuckles. Through the bond, I felt him holding himself back from pouring panic into me. I felt him choosing control, not the cold kind he used as armor, but the gentle kind that made room for me. Another contraction came. The room vanished for a moment. There was only heat, pressure, thunder gathering somewhere beyond the roof. The baby moved with it. Not wild now, not tearing through me like before. Searching. I pressed my hand to my stomach. I'm here, little storm. I'm here. Adrien went utterly still. Mara's gaze softened for half a breath before she returned to being terrifying. Good. Talk to the child. Anchor her. Her. I knew it then. Not because Mara said it, not because of bloodlines or prophecy or old kings. Because something bright and fierce answered beneath my palm, and it felt like a daughter who had already inherited every ounce of my attitude. Adrien felt it too. His face changed. Our daughter, he whispered. The words nearly broke me. I glared at him because crying seemed inconvenient. Don't get emotional yet. I need you useful. He bent his head until his forehead touched my hand. Anything. Mara handed him a cloth. Start with that. Labor was not beautiful. Anyone who said otherwise had either never done it or wanted women to forget the details. It was blood and sweat and pain that came in waves, each one stronger than the last. It was Mara's voice cutting through the storm. It was Anya wiping my forehead. It was Sloane threatening someone outside the door for breathing too loudly. It was Adrien beside me, letting me crush his hand without complaint. Once, between contractions, I saw the silver veil pendant resting on the table near the bowl. Leora's crest, the wolf and 3 stars. I looked at Adrien. He followed my gaze. I kept it, he said quietly. I don't know why. Yes, you do. His jaw tightened. I breathed through the ache, through the fear, through the old ghost standing between us for the last time. You carried proof, I said. Now carry the memory, not guilt. His eyes shut. When they opened, something had loosened in him. Not disappeared. Grief did not vanish because the right sentence found it, but it moved. It made space. Adrien picked up the pendant and placed it beside the window, where rain had started striking the glass. For witness, he said. Mara nodded once. Then come back here. She needs you. He did. The storm broke over the manor. Thunder cracked so hard the walls shuddered. Blue-white light flashed across the ceiling, and our daughter answered with a surge of power that made every candle flame bend toward me. Mara cursed. That sounded bad, I said. It was enthusiastic. I don't like enthusiastic. You'll like this less if you stop pushing. So I pushed. I pushed until the world narrowed to Mara's commands and Adrien's voice and the wild, impossible rhythm of my own heart refusing to quit. Then suddenly, a cry. Sharp, furious, alive. everything stopped. Mara lifted a tiny, slick, furious baby into the world as thunder rolled overhead like applause. "A girl," Mara said, and her voice shook. Adrien made a sound I had never heard from him. Not a growl. Not a command. Something broke open. I tried to lift my head. "Let me see her." Mara placed my daughter against my chest. She was warm, small, outraged, perfect. "Hi," I whispered, my voice wrecked. "You caused a lot of trouble." She stopped crying for exactly 2 seconds, then started again, louder. Adrien laughed. Tears slipped down his face, and he did not hide them. My heart hurt worse than the rest of me. Then the room tilted. Mara's hands moved too quickly. "Bella," she said sharply. Adrien's joy vanished. "What?" "Too much blood." Cold crept in beneath my ribs. I tried to hold my daughter tighter, but my arms would not obey. "No," Adrien said. That single word carried every grave he had ever stood beside. I wanted to tell him not to sound like that. I wanted to tell him I was fine. I was not fine. The bond stretched thin, trembling. Adrien leaned over me, one hand around mine, the other cradling our daughter against my chest so she would not slip away from me. "Stay," he said. I would have made a joke, something sharp, something brave, but his voice destroyed me. "Bella, please." That was what pulled me back. Not command, not alpha power. Please. Our daughter cried against my heart, and beneath that cry was a little storm, fierce and bright and mine. I dragged in a breath, then another. Mara pressed something bitter to my lips. "Swallow." I did. Because apparently I was not done surviving. Adrien bowed his head over our joined hands and shook once, silently. I squeezed his fingers weakly. "Don't be dramatic," I whispered. His laugh broke in half. "You nearly died." Nearly is doing important work in that sentence. Mara made a sound suspiciously close to a sob, then covered it with irritation. "Everyone out except the father. And if either of you tries anything heroic for the next month, I'll sedate the entire household." Months later, the Northern Pax learned that peace was not quiet. Peace argued. Peace rebuilt walls, rewrote laws, buried the dead, and forced old men on councils to listen when a human woman told them their traditions were badly designed and worse executed. Halden lived long enough to give Victor every name tied to Voss's network. After that, Pack justice took him. I did not ask for details. I had a daughter to raise and a kingdom of stubborn wolves to annoy. Her name was Raina Hart Woods because I had carried her, nearly died birthing her, and refused to let anyone monogram me out of the accomplishment. Adrien did not argue. That alone proved fatherhood had changed him. The veil pendant was returned to Leora's grave at the Western Pass. Adrien went alone the first time. The second time, he asked me to come. I did. We left 3 winter roses and 1 promise. No more ghosts mistaken for chains. Hart and company won the contract to restore the damaged wing of the manor, which Maya found hilarious. "You got pregnant by a werewolf alpha and turned it into a renovation project," she said. "I'm diversified. You also rewrote pack law. Regulatory restoration." She stared at me. I stared back. She hugged me hard enough to make Adrien growl from across the room. "Relax," I told him. "She liked me before you did." "I liked you immediately," he said. "You threatened to drag me to your territory." I was under stress. You were under arrogance. Sloane trained new warriors now. Women. Men. Humans who had married into the packs and had spent too long being treated like decorative liabilities. Sometimes I trained too. Only when Mara wasn't watching. Mara always knew. She simply waited until afterward to lecture me. The council changed slowly, which was still faster than anyone expected. Human settlements near the border opened negotiations. Trade routes reopened. Children played in courtyards where blood had once dried between stones. And Adrien asked, before touching me, before making decisions that involved me, before letting fear turn into orders. He was still ruthless, still dangerous, still the alpha wolves lowered their eyes for. But with me, he learned to stand beside instead of over. One evening, a storm rolled across the northern sky. I stood on the balcony with Raina in my arms, while the wind lifted the curtains behind us. She watched the lightning with wide, solemn eyes, as if recognizing an old friend. Adrien came up behind me and wrapped his arms around both of us. This time, I leaned back. "She likes storms," he murmured. "She gets that from you." His mouth brushed my temple. "She gets her temper from you. Then she'll be magnificent." "She already is." For a while we said nothing. Rain darkened the stone. Thunder rolled over the hills. Below us, the pack moved through lamplight and laughter, alive because we had fought for it. Adrian's arms tightened gently. "Are you happy?" he asked. I looked down at our daughter, at the child born of storm and blood. Then I looked at the man who had found me in a tavern during a storm, and somehow become home, without ever making me feel caged. "Yes," I said. "Don't let it go to your head." He smiled against my hair. Too late. I should have elbowed him. Instead, I stayed exactly where I was. The storm raged on around us, but neither of us was running anymore.
I waited where the cold wind cries, holding ghosts beneath these tired eyes. Every road kept leading back to you, even when the night tore me in two. Your name still burns under my skin, like a prayer I never should have whispered again. And damn, I tried to let you go, but my heart never learned what my mind knows. Here I am, still standing in your shadow, calling out across the sky that won't let go. If love is pain, then let it ache forever, 'cause losing you hurts more than stormy weather. Can you hear me through the silence and the rain? I'd break 1,000 times just to hold you again. Here I am, still yours. So if the stars forget our names tonight, I'll still search for you beyond the fading light. And when this lonely world finally pulls me under, my last breath will whisper your name.